this up. Hey everyone, we're back in on this. We're doing good. Here's the intro, and everyone else now. Paul is back on the stream. Hello everyone, thanks again, and appreciate you dealing with my dumbass computer. Oh, wanted to let you know I wore a shirt for you. Never forget.
I hear you.
You know, the retro.
Oh yeah.
That's my new
Well,
shirt. That's
listen,
my
where's
new
the
shirt.
reel to reel tape?
That's right. That's where it's all at. So
Where's the reel to reel
that's
tape?
right. So got all that for you. So
Excellent.
we weren't talking smack about you, Mr. Rothfarb. So no need to defend yourself. We will. I
No,
think.
I'll wait till he sees it
Yeah,
or he watch it before I do
Paul
that.
absolutely wants to have you defend that because again, how else are we going to do that? But yes, but anyway, we were talking about the reason I brought us back quickly, right, is because you're sharing great stories about when you were growing up in New York, how
Right.
it wasn't necessarily really college; it was more the pros, but
Yes.
how you were watching
Right.
Danny White on the TV and everything
Yeah. I
else. So I
just
didn't want to interrupt.
it's just one of those things that seared into my head when I was a little kid watching because I remember those in those days the Fiesta Bowl was just starting and they
Yes,
were playing those games at night
right.
and late night on the East Coast. And it probably was a Friday night or a Saturday night game
Okay,
where you know ASU was playing whoever the heck they were playing, and I
right,
remember Danny White, the sunburst helmets,
right.
and and that was like one of the first memories I had of anything that had to do with the state of Arizona.
Okay.
And
That must have been like in the middle of the night for you.
yes, as that game started, probably this was probably midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know why it stuck in my head as I was growing up. It just always did.
It just that was a one school that you're like, okay, that resonated with of all the teams too, right? Because I mean, obviously you were probably getting a lot of USC at least at the time, right?
Well, yeah, you would get USC. I Notre Dame. My father loved Notre Dame. I
Okay.
want,
Right. You
I.
can't even say the name.
You know, we were. New York wasn't really, like I said, not a college football town at all.
Gotcha.
Like I said, St. John's, college basketball huge. You'd have lots of college basketball games at Madison Square Garden.
Lou Carnesecca,
Uh,
man, I loved watching his
Garneseca,
teams. I loved watching
who
his teams.
actually was the coach at my high school before he went to St. John's and the
Oh,
next.
really?
Yeah, I went to Archbishop Malloy High School.
Okay.
If you, as I said, I went to Catholic high school, middle school too, but that's
Okay.
after I moved back to New York after that 1 year and a half plus in that place we don't talk about.
What took
I
you
know
to
you.
the town down south? And what year was that?
Um, had to be the 74-75 school year.
Okay.
Um, and it definitely was part of that year
Okay.
because that was the year the uh, Islanders played the Pittsburgh Penguins in the hockey playoffs
Mm-hmm.
and were down 3-0 and came back to win that series
Wow.
on a 1-0 shutout and almost did it again to the eventual Cup champs and the Flyers. They were down 3-0 in that series and came back to tie it up and lost in Game 7.
Okay.
At that point, they were only the second team in the history to do that.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
and
crazy.
and I remember because once again, talk about little black and white TVs. At that point in our lives, my parents and my aunt and uncle
Right.
were partners in a restaurant.
Okay.
And that day of Game 7 against the Penguins, I was in the back of the kitchen with a little black and white TV. The games at that point were also carried on NBC, but the Tucson affiliate did not carry the game.
Mm,
It was on one of the independent channels,
okay.
channel 11 in Tucson.
Oh, look at that. You're remembering all those
Oh,
channels.
listen,
Yeah.
this is how I remember this stuff. Um, and I remember watching the game in the back of the kitchen while my parents are doing whatever it is
Doing
they
whatever
do
it is.
or whatever it was they were doing. That didn't work out, and we ended up coming back to New York.
Got it.
But that
Okay.
was the Fred Snowden days for Arizona basketball.
Right.
And the only other name I can remember is T Bell because of the nickname T Bell.
Right.
Okay, who is probably still pretty high in their wide receiver annals if you
I
check
think
the
so.
numbers.
I think he is. Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
and those were
That's
my.
interesting. Maybe they retired his number. I can't remember.
I
I'm
don't
trying
know
to.
either.
Yeah.
I honestly, come 1982 when I started college,
Okay.
I couldn't tell you word one about that place anymore. I couldn't tell you word one.
Right. Oh man.
Um, so anyway,
Interesting. So Mr. Rothfarb was at two of the four games of the Flyers series in Long Island, right? So you
well,
and
he could have
Rob, yeah. So you and
grew up in,
Rob are from the same. Are you both from Long Island as well? And you
no,
just.
I feel like that. I grew up in Queens.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. This
Okay,
that's a definitely a huge distinction. So yeah.
yes. Well, he grew up in a place called Smithtown, which
Okay.
is much closer. It's Suffolk County, but it's still the Nassau. It's closer to the Nassau Suffolk border than where I am.
Okay, got it. So that's the northern side
That's
again.
north. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
north.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I'm on the South Shore right
So you were talking about it too, because we were coming back to what
now. Yeah.
before my computer decided to take a dump. You came in, you had a good time, but again, obviously, as always, the ladies at ASU were lovely, but you weren't exactly entirely ready for the
No, I wasn't
transition,
ready. I
right?
wasn't ready. And um, you know, that was the same year they opened up the school radio station
Oh, okay.
again. The first time they had an edition of it was way back in the Al Michaels days,
Oh, wow. When he okay,
and it just went to Manzanita and the two. What the heck are the two on the side? Was that Saguaro at the time? I don't remember.
so I'm
But there
drawing a
were two
blank too.
doors. There
Yeah.
were two. There was a maybe it was the Palo Verdes. I don't know.
No, I
Whatever
know,
was
but
there
there's
on
those two that are
University.
lower. Yeah, they're two lower. One
Whatever those two were on
they're to
University.
the west, right? But it was just that small pocket that it
Right.
transmitted to. Okay.
When I got there, okay, and just to show you where, and I love the guy that was my advisor and my professor, like my mentor, so to speak. The guy's name was Dr. Fritz Lee.
Okay.
He was the one that brought the radio station back.
Oh, right
Uh,
on.
yes, and I happened to just go there. I registered. I got my schedule, and he's from Nebraska, and he was
Oh, okay.
showing me and he's showing me the campus. Okay, and I said, I'm thirsty. Where can I get something to drink?
Okay.
And he goes, the pop machine's right over there. I'm like, what? He goes,
Yeah.
pop machine's over there. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And this went on like 3 or 4 times. And finally, he puts his arm around me and points. And I said, oh, you meant soda pop.
Exactly. Yeah, that I
So
had the same thing too because I had not heard that for a while, and I had a cousin that just called it pop, and we were relentless because I'm like, shit, I don't know what that means. Oh, got it. Unlike when you go to Boston, then it's all everything's just it's a foreign country over there. But
yeah,
anyway.
well,
So
uh,
your advisor goes you and you're walking around campus, right?
right. So that's like I said, they reopened up the radio station that year,
Okay.
and it went to all the dorms except one.
Okay. And that's everything north of University almost, right? I would imagine.
Well, whatever, there was just one. I think actually the one that was the biggest struggle actually was this time was Manzanita.
Interesting. So everything down on this on Apache and everything else would get it as
Yeah.
well. Okay.
Well, they had what they called a carrier current system.
Okay.
Basically, it's just like a bunch of little mini transmitters,
Oh, interesting.
okay, that went and hooked into the electrical systems
Okay.
of the various dorms, and that's how they get. If you were in the
Got
parking
it.
lot of those dorms, you could hear this. You could hear the signal.
And
Okay,
you could
and
tune it
they
in on the
were
radio. Okay, got it.
doing that, to be honest with you, at different times.
Got it.
Um, and I struggled that first year because everything was, yeah, but you have that New York accent. You can't,
Mm,
you can't put you. And it got very frustrating after a
I
while.
bet. I can imagine.
Okay, and I got homesick, and I dropped out.
Okay.
Okay, um, I came back, lived with my father in New Jersey,
Okay.
and was breaking my butt working for a local establishment,
Okay.
that food place that was very well known in New Jersey. I refused to give them their name. I don't even know if they're still in existence,
Okay.
except for maybe the original one might still be, but that's
Okay.
is what it is. And That lasted about 15 months.
Okay.
And and I got into fights with them
Mm,
over things they promised and didn't follow through on.
okay.
And I said, screw this, I'm going back to school.
Okay.
Okay. Um, my grades were not that good.
Neither were mine.
The only place I could go back to was ASU.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But this time, of course, my parents said, "Oh, by the way, you're paying for
Yes, I'm
it."
familiar with
Okay.
that too. Yep.
And Rob knows this story, and I know it's a long-winded story, but it just kind of sets things up, I guess. Anyway,
All good.
yeah. So I get back to ASU.
Okay.
This was in the summertime, and
Perfect weather.
me and yeah, I think it was 80. I'd have to look at the year, but I guess it was summer '84
Wow. Okay.
or
During the
whatever
Summer
it was.
Olympics then. Okay. So the Summer Olympics were going on in
Um,
LA and all that.
it
Yeah.
was the year they hired Bob Wine
No, I don't know what
as a
year that was.
basketball coach. Well,
Okay.
no, that's what I'm saying. I can't remember the year. Okay.
Right.
Um, and it just happens that, like I said, I re-enrolled part-time at ASU.
Okay.
I just signed up for a class at Mesa just so I could
Okay.
get as many credits as I possibly could.
Right on.
But I wanted to be back in ASU in some way, shape, or form,
Right.
back at the radio station. And I just happened to walk in when they were firing the coach and hiring Winehouse.
Okay.
I broke the story.
Oh, you
I
did.
broke the story
Got it. Did you
purely
know?
by I just happened to be in the right place, the right time,
Interesting.
and
So you knew. Okay.
um, and that's when I went back to the radio station at that time, and the guy who was the news director said, "You're now my new assistant sports director,"
Got it.
and so forth and so on. Um, so the fact that I was not full time for a while
Mm-hmm.
stretched out my enrollment. So
Okay.
I like to say I have two sets of ASU families. The kids who I went to school with in the mid 80s,
Right.
and the guys like Rob that I went to in the late 80s.
Okay. Got
Okay.
it.
And the ironic part is uh, Rob thought I hated
That's funny. That's how
him.
great friendships start, isn't it?
Okay. He thought I had, I had just gotten into a giant fight with my roommate.
Okay.
And I walked, even though it was my dad's condo, I walked out.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
walked out of the condo that day and went basically to the radio station, which was my safe place.
Right. Absolutely.
You know,
Where was
uh,
that at, by the way, on campus?
literally across the street from the Chuck Box.
Gotcha.
Off the
Oh,
hall.
okay.
Literally across the street from the Chuck Box.
Right there. That's funny.
Okay, you know, have they hit landmark status yet? Because that's what we're all hoping for,
That's
right?
they need to. I think they need one more year. So my greatest fear is that they don't get landmark status and ASU swoops it up and builds something fancy there. So
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping
I
to
think
make
you
sure.
have to be there 50 years, and I think they're at 50, I think they're at 48 or something. So
Yeah, it's close.
it's close. So we just got to keep
Right
pushing.
there,
Yeah, we got to keep
right there.
pushing so you can't tear it down.
Right. So I mean, I walked into the radio station, and Rob was there doing something. Don't ask me what he was doing.
Got it.
I don't pay attention to him now. I'm not gonna pay- I wasn't
I
gonna pay
think he
attention.
said he muted you out right now. Anyway.
Yeah, he could be. He's probably smarter than most of us. And we just started talking,
Right
and
on.
it went from there. It literally. And one day he said something. And he says, "You know, I thought you hated me." I said, "Why would you think that?" He goes, "You never talked to me." I go, "I didn't know who you were." It wasn't. I wasn't trying to. I wasn't ignoring you. I just,
I just I don't know
you
who
know,
you were.
at that point, we probably had 20 or 30 guys in the sports department of the
Okay.
radio station. There was, I mean, there was no way for me to know everybody.
Right.
You
Fair.
know, at that point, they were still doing night newscasts.
Oh
So
wow.
somebody would, yeah, we used to do them at 2, 5, and 9,
Okay.
or maybe even later than that for a late one.
Okay.
Um, and obviously, this is pre-internet days.
Of course. Yeah.
So
You actually had to
long,
transmit something. Yeah.
yeah. And we would go on from like, I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight.
Wow. Okay. That's a hell of a day.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, obviously we had DJ shifts and news shifts, and
Okay.
um, at that point we still weren't really doing a lot of sporting events,
Okay.
and getting them to let us do those games at that point, which seems odd now because they do everything.
Absolutely. Every single event
Uh,
gets covered.
yeah, well, no, 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 but I mean by the students.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In those days, it was very touch and go to start with.
Interesting. They just didn't
Uh,
see the need for it or whatever it was. They just.
well, they were protecting their rights holders.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not, KTAR has held those rights forever,
Right.
and at that point, I was not as uh, I don't want to say known, but I hadn't been as ingrained
Mm-hmm.
in the athletic department as I became,
Right.
and I had to try and I had to tell them, I go, listen, we only go to the dorms. We're not a threat to anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Um, and so we finally talked them into that.
Good.
Um, we were able to do any home match, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have, there was no budget. We didn't. We got Dr. Lee to buy us some headphones and
Okay.
uh, a mixer box that plugged into a telephone line, and that was always
That sounds hit.
hit or miss.
I was gonna say
It
that sounds hit and miss.
it was always hit. You never knew what was going to work on what
Right.
night. You never knew what was going to work on what
Right.
night. And it was always a guessing game.
In what
And
way?
like I said, you never knew what was going to work.
You didn't know it was gonna go sideways.
You didn't know what was going to work. You didn't know if the feedback, if you were to get, because we would play promos and PSAs and things like that for
Okay.
commercial breaks, trying to make things sound as professional
Of
as we
course.
possibly could. But we didn't always know.
Right. What was
We
gonna
didn't
go?
always know what was going to work. And
That's
so we
cool.
did football, we did basketball,
Okay.
we did a bunch of baseball.
Right on.
I really liked doing the weekday afternoon games.
Okay.
Didn't always necessarily get them on the air, but um, I liked doing as many different games that KTAR wasn't doing.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So then you were the one that you were the
Right.
coverage. No one else was there.
Like if they were playing a BYU at Packard Stadium at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a
On a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, exactly.
ATAR wasn't doing those games.
Were they do? Is it just because they said, okay, it's a team and a time slot that's like, nah, we don't want to
Well,
have
back
that.
then they did, and it's kind of like what they do now. They probably do a little bit more now,
Hmm.
but they did all the conference games
Okay.
and they did the big series. Like if they were playing Texas
Okay.
or Florida State
Right. A
or
big game came
Miami,
in.
then they would do those. Oklahoma State,
Right.
they would do those games.
That's interesting too, because I think ASU baseball was the only thing going on during that time of the year. I mean, other than maybe playoff basketball for the Suns, but there really wasn't anything else at the time, was there? Or maybe?
Well, no, like I said, maybe the Suns if they were in the playoffs.
Hmm.
I grew up a Nets fan,
Oh,
and
okay.
even when I moved away, I still rooted for them when I was watching basketball,
Right.
or at least professional
Yep.
basketball. Um, and that was actually the first media credential I ever got. The Nets were playing the Suns at the Coliseum,
Okay.
and I put in for a single game pass, and they granted it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh,
And you
so
got in.
I got in. I actually, there's a buddy of mine that wrote for Miami newspapers and does a lot of golf. Basically, is a golf writer now.
Okay.
Uh, we became friends because we were the same age. He was the only guy
Right
there
on.
that was the same age as I was.
Okay.
He
Got it.
was, he was working for, was probably working for UPI back then, which still exists, but mostly in Europe and
Okay.
mostly as a, I don't even know what kind of service it is. it's it used to be them and AP,
Right.
Associated Press. They
Right.
were the you know so um so we tried to do as much as we possibly could.
Okay.
Um, and back then, softball stadium was just a backstop.
Where on campus? Where was it then?
Same
Relatively.
place.
Oh, okay. So, but it was just a backstop.
It was just a backstop. It was literally like a park backstop,
Man.
and there was no electricity.
So
No, and
everything had to be during the
I
day.
shouldn't say no. I'm sorry. Not electric. No phone lines.
Okay.
So if I wanted to do a softball game, we had to do it into a tape recorder, and
Okay.
then play the tape recording on
Re-
the air later that night,
yeah, just replay the whole thing.
which
I
we
see
did
what.
a few times. Um,
That's a lot of
the,
pioneering work, though. I mean, just given. I mean, it was like that has to be just a lot of pioneering work that you did that, like Cronkite and everyone else just takes for granted what you guys were able to
Now,
do. Yeah.
I mean, they, I when I look at the Cronkite kids now, and I have talked to them in some of the trips that I've made,
Of course.
and on Twitter and stuff, I tell them, you guys are like my great 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 grandparents. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back either. That this is just the way it was.
No, absolutely, because it's just like
Okay.
there's so much that you literally pioneered and trailblazed for the school to be able to
Um,
do it and prove that it worked.
we at that time the club team for hockey
Okay.
was playing in Thomas Mall,
Where's Thomas Mall?
48th Street
Wow. Okay.
in Thomas Road.
Yeah, 48th and Thomas.
It was attached to a bar and a mall and some other things.
Right.
And I went there one day to look, because I'm sure we'll get into the hockey thing at
Of
some
course.
point. And I went there to look. There were no phone lines. There were no electrical outlets anywhere near the rink. So I couldn't do a game.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay. The only game we ever got to do was one night they played University of Colorado at the Coliseum, the old
Okay. Yep.
the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And that we were able to use the press box. So we had a
Got
phone
you.
line, we had electricity. Um, that was either 88 or 89.
Okay.
So um, when I look at these kids now, they've all got the radio broadcasts of just about everything.
Exactly. I mean,
They,
they have a traveling studio. I mean, this is all. I mean,
yeah,
they got
yeah.
everything they need right here, right? And then they just plug
Um,
it in, and they're able to go and do it. And it's like it's
be- be-
quite the thing.
because of the streaming situation, every home game gets done, as a TV production,
Yeah.
which,
The Blaze Sports does a great job of that, by the way.
yeah, I mean, but because the internet now, if they can run the regular programming,
Mhm.
and you probably know this better than I do because I'm an old man when it comes to technology. I have some of it which I can understand, but they have separate channels. So
Right.
if they're running 2 or 3 sporting events at the same time,
Hmm.
they can do that now. We couldn't do that.
Oh,
We could barely
absolutely
run
not.
one.
Is
Okay?
it now? Did you have enough bodies? Like, let's say, did you have enough bodies to cover the multiple things that were
Every
going
night
on?
except one.
Really?
Yes.
So you were able to? You had enough bodies to cover all the events?
Well, we covered what people, it was a learning period for us too. We didn't have the equipment
Yeah.
to cover everything. So what's going to take priority?
Yeah, that's true.
Football, got to take priority,
Right.
right? Um, Men's basketball, um, women's basketball. Occasionally we
Hmm.
did. Uh, 1 or 2 nights we did a wrestling match.
Okay. Right on.
I was there for the Bobby Douglas years when they were
Oh, right on.
okay. Um, we would cover volleyball. Sometimes I would go, sometimes other folks would go. But there was only one night that we didn't have enough staff to cover things.
Okay. And that was.
Game 6 of the 1986 World Series.
Oh, okay.
Nobody wanted to work the football game that night. They're playing Utah. Nobody wanted to work the football game.
Nobody wanted to work the game because everyone wanted to watch the World Series.
Watch the World Series. I'm a Mets fan. I didn't want to. I
Yeah,
wanted to watch
exactly.
the
Like,
World
no,
Series
you.
too,
It's like
but
nope.
I was the sports director. I had no choice.
So you had to.
Yeah.
Did we at least win?
Oh yeah, they crushed them.
Good.
It wasn't. It was. It was. Yeah. I mean, Utah wasn't any good back then.
Yeah,
We were,
that's true back
and
then.
we're talking them back in the WAC days.
Yes, exactly.
So myself and the guy that was my assistant sports director, who actually stayed in the business,
Okay.
a guy by the name of Chad Hartman,
Okay.
big in Minneapolis and Minnesota sports.
Okay.
Um, and he did a talk show there forever. Um, anyway, he was my assistant at the time, and he goes, "You know what I'll do? I'll take a small little TV and I'll work the studio
Okay.
and be the producer, so to speak, while you guys do the game." I'm all right. So, all right. And by the way, it was crazy because it was one of the few nights where everything worked. It was one of the few nights that everything worked. I could hear the commercials. I could
Right.
hear this. He did cutaways for him to update people on the World Series. The only part of the game I got to see live was the top of the 10th inning
Oh, wow.
when the Red Sox scored, got the Dave Henderson home run in the top of the 10th,
Okay.
because that was halftime of the football game.
Okay.
It was halftime of the football game, and I went down. At that time, the press box, we were basically on the roof of the press
Okay, got it.
box. I not as much as when they redid it, but I mean our little booth was kind of up
Right.
above where the rest of the press box was.
Mm-hmm.
The any national TV guys were in the next booth over.
Oh, so they got that. Okay.
Okay, but that was the one night that everything worked, and it was halftime of the football game, and I went downstairs, and I'm staring at the screen, and I'm like, "You have got to be effing kidding me!" I go, "You're telling me that the Mets won 116 games, that 108 games, that
Wow, that's a ton.
the Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden,
Yeah.
Keith Hernandez was still in his prime. These Strawberry and Gooden were 2 or 3 years into their careers. Um,
That is quite the lineup. Wow, I forgot that lineup.
and I'm like, "You've got it." And I wanted to walk out of the press box and go home right then. The football game stunk.
Yeah, because they were blowing them out of the
They
water.
were blowing them out. And I'm like, "You've got it." I go, "They're going to finally win, and they're going to finally win against the Mets."
Right. The cocaine gang, as Rothfarb called them.
Well, listen, they were. Anybody that says anything different,
Yeah.
there was a writer who wrote a book on the bad guys won. Yeah, they did.
Mm.
They did. They absolutely did. But we didn't. Met fans didn't care. We really didn't care.
No, because you were winning. Winning cures all. Winning cures all.
And those guys had about 10 fights that year.
Man, they were like, it's like a whole, it's almost as if, like it was a thread, like the Pistons too. They were doing the same exact thing, right? So it's the same exact style of play. They're like, all right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for baseball, yeah, because, and they'll tell you, if you listen to guys, they'll tell you, we were arrogant, we were good, and we knew it, and we didn't care.
They were throwing it around, and everyone saw that. Oh my goodness. That was a hated team. Yeah, that's just like Detroit.
They were.
Just like Detroit. They were a hated team.
Absolutely, and I don't deny it, but I don't care. So what happened is,
right. So you're there and you're wanted and everything else, and so
all I want to do is go home.
Yeah.
All I want to do is go home. I don't care. I'm like, I was really, I mean, let's face it, it's sports. I get depressed, but I mean, it wasn't. But you're a sports guy.
Absolutely.
And so, like I said, it was one of the few nights that everything worked. So I don't know, it was a series or two of football. And I said, all right, let's go back to the studio. Let's get an update on Game 6 of the World Series.
Yeah.
And who was the first out in editing? trying to remember who the first out was. I can't remember. And whoever it was, he says he's out, and he sends it back to the booth,
Right.
and do 4 or 5 more plays,
Mm-hmm.
and I send it back.
Of course.
Keith Hernandez is flied out. There's 2 outs, and the Red Sox are about to win their first World Series since 1918.
Man.
And you could just, and I know in my voice, you could hear that depression. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Absolutely.
calling the game. Okay. Like I said, I had all newbies with me that night because nobody wanted to do the game.
No, of course, yeah. You had to, but yeah, everyone's
I had
like the lowest of the low totem pole spot newbie guys just had to be with you.
Yep. So, and I go, all right, let's go back, see if the Red Sox have done what nobody thought would ever happen.
Right.
And chatters. And Gary Carter gets a base hit, and the Mets are still alive, but they're down. They're still down 2. There's 2 outs.
Right.
And Kevin Mitchell is up. Blah blah blah. All right.
There's some hope.
Well, I'm really not. I'm not getting too excited yet at this point, right?
Right.
So, and then a few more plays go by, and I'm still waiting for the inevitable to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Someone to whisper in your ear, yeah, it's over.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let's go back to the studio. Let's get another update. Gary Carter scored on a base hit from Ray Knight. They have 2 runners on. Mookie Wilson is up, and I'm like, so now I'm starting to get. Now I'm like, okay, all right. You never know. It's tying runs at third, so forth and so on.
Pep in your step.
Now instead of 4 or 5 plays, now I'm going back every 2 or 3 plays.
Right.
Bob Stanley has thrown a wild pitch, and Kevin Mitchell has scored, and I want to scream. And I want to absolutely scream.
Just throw everything around that's working.
I want to go, and I am trying to keep my composure.
Oh, I bet.
The game the way I'm supposed to, because
you're supposed to.
That's what we're supposed to do.
It's not that Doug Tamara was going to come after you, but someone was going to come
he's
after
not.
you.
No, he wasn't. And so now I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place now. I'm calling a play, and now we're down to like 2 plays, and let's go back and get another update. Mookie Wilson has fouled off 95,000 pitches, and he's still alive. And so now it's like, well, we did another play. Let's go back. And all of a sudden, in one of the most miraculous comebacks ever.
Oh my God!
Mookie Wilson hits a ground ball, and Bill Buckner boots it, and Ray Knight, and the Mets come back to it, and I'm like, and I am just all over the place. I'm trying to stay cool and calm and collected, and I'm not.
Right. Yeah,
you can hear the excitement in my voice.
The energy's back.
Look at the game. If you went and looked up the score of that game, it might have been 49-13.
But you're calling it.
And I'm calling plays like it's the national championship.
Yep.
Man. 2 times everything worked.
God, that would have been so cool to have a recording of that. Gosh dang, that would have been cool.
No, listen, we tried to record as much as we could.
Right.
But that was 1986. This is 2020.
Right.
Over time, stuff disappears.
Yeah.
I run out of space, for a lot of different reasons.
Exactly. And Rob's out there saying, as a Yankees fan, it was no win, either the Mets or the Red Sox winning that year.
I never understood that because, and he'll tell you that my aggravation with the Yankees is more with, where the Yankees are supposed to win, not necessarily with the Yankees themselves,
right?
But the Yankee fans of a certain type. Okay, and I don't know what he's saying because I don't have it up on, but I don't really care. Okay. But my problem was always the Yankee fan that felt like it was their birthright to win the World Series.
That must be wild though, because I mean, I understand you kind of get that with some people that are like you get the Oregon fans, or you always get some sort of entitled fan. I just cannot
It's like
comprehend
the
that when
USC
you have
football.
yeah, but you have those generational entitled fans that are like,
Yeah,
it has to be. It's always and will be this way, and you just can't
yeah.
stand it, right? It just
No, it just makes me nuts. And you know, so that was listen. I tell people all the time, I'm the one traditional team that I rooted for growing up was the Giants.
okay.
And
Why not the Jets? Or was it?
I
Is it
thought,
just?
well, be,
And again, I'm just trying to understand it
no,
because I
no,
know
no,
they're
I
both
understand.
there,
I
so I just was
totally get
curious.
it.
Yeah.
Listen, my family, my family, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, whoever they were Brooklyn Dodger fans.
Oh, okay, got it.
With no chance in hell I was ever going to be a Yankee fan.
Okay.
Okay. My father, more than my mother
Hmm.
at that time, was a Giants fan.
Okay.
I went to my first football game when the Giants were still playing at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, okay. I remember
It
that.
was me, my father, and one of his neighbors, a guy named Shorty. Don't ask me what his real name was because I would
Never
okay,
knew it.
never knew it. And I grew up rooting for guys like John Mendenhall and Bob Tucker and Spider Lockhart.
Right.
Okay, and and when people tell me, well, how do you not root against the Jets? It's because I don't care. I said I root against the Jets if it helps the Giants.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't have anything against. My brother-in-law is a gigantic Jets fan.
Okay.
I knew my best friend growing up. He was a Jets fan.
Okay.
But the teams I hated were the teams that you think of.
Right. Rob was saying that it's more of a family thing, right? It's like if your family liked them, then everyone kind of, or
For the
is it?
most part, that's what happens. Sometimes you slip through the cracks. Like my my father could never understand how I grew up an Islanders fan because he was,
Because, oh, interesting.
and I didn't go to Islander games as a kid. I went to Ranger games.
Okay. But it's
You know,
just something. What was it about the Islanders that you're like,
just
okay,
happened.
okay,
It just happened. I remember watching them on TV growing up as a kid.
hmm,
Before I went to Arizona, when they were an
okay,
expansion team, uh, there was just something that made me root for them and
okay.
not the Rangers. My father could never figure it out. He said, "How did you grow up to be an Islanders fan?" I don't know, Dad. I know.
It's all organic. It just happened.
Yeah, it just happened. So as a Giants fan, I hate the Cowboys. I hate the Redskins. Or, excuse me, the
The
Washington
Washington
Football
football
Club.
team.
Okay.
Yeah, and Rothfarb says you're just bandwagon.
Yeah, I know. As the term I like to use to this, and it's crazy for a history buff to say this, but I'll say it anyway. The filthy Delphia Eagle.
I have not heard that one. Of all the things, that was the one that the filthy Delphia. I love it. I'm gonna have to adopt that one and throw it
That's
around in
cool. I'm
conversation.
all. I get it.
That was
You
the
know,
other thing. Yeah, and I know we're coming up at the top of the hour because I wanted to give ourselves give us and everyone else a moment to do a quick bio break and refill on the drinks.
thanks.
But I wanted to I definitely wanted to follow that up, right? Because I had some questions because I mean my team that I absolutely love. There was actually two hockey teams that I came late to.
Okay.
Were the Whalers. I just
Oh, the Hartford Whalers.
the
Oh, love them.
Hartford the Whalers and then the Leaves. I don't know what it was, but again, being a desert rat down in the town that we shall not name, I worked at this sports memorabilia store called Going to the Game,
Right.
and we would get the T-shirts and the hats and jackets
Right.
and everything else, and we got this random um, starter hat.
Right.
It was a maple leaf hat,
Right.
beautiful blue, and it said maple leaves across the back, and I got hooked. I was like,
Not,
okay,
not a. I totally understand. It's one of the. Listen, it's one of the best looking logos and jerseys in sports.
Which one? These
The,
are the Whalers.
well, that's the best logo. That I don't care what anybody says.
That
That's the
Whalers one
best
is
logo,
just so cool. Oh,
and and they had the best goal song. Okay,
really?
yeah. If you it was a song called Brass Bonanza,
Okay.
and it's awesome. And any hockey fan will tell you, anybody who's a diehard and remembers those days,
Right.
it's the best.
Okay.
Uh, the University of Connecticut's uh, team actually got permission from whoever owns the
Oh,
rights or
interesting.
whatever to use that as their goal song when they play at home and they score.
Interesting.
And
So now, do we have a goal song? Is ASU, or should we?
probably,
Okay, I wasn't sure.
to be honest with you, since I this is going to sound strange, but I've never been to a game at Oceanside.
By the way, I was just thinking about this. Once this show takes off, I'm gonna fly your ass out to Tempe, and we're gonna have a weekend where we're gonna see a game. We're gonna see we're gonna see a hockey game and a football game in the same weekend.
I'm in.
You
I'm
know,
in.
so we will make it. That's my commitment to you. Again, hopefully it's
Well,
sooner than later.
hopefully it is sooner than later, but the goal is um, 2026. I say goodbye to the New York City Department of Education, and I say hello once again to my home away from home.
Do you know where? And again, so you know what? It's 8:04. Let's go because I have a bunch, and I
Yeah.
actually have a question for you related to that. So I think it'll be
All
a
right.
good warm up, and then we can do all this. But everyone on the chat, what we're gonna do, Paul, I'm gonna actually go ahead and transition real quick to an announcement. So
Okay.
you're good if you want to go ahead and step
Be
away.
back.
We'll be back at 8. Come back at 8:15.
You
Or if
got
you
it.
want. Yep. Hey everyone, thanks again. Just wanted to make an announcement. Next weekend, Friday, September 4th at 5:30, Labor Day weekend, we're going to have our next virtual Sun Devil Summit. So make sure you are able to attend. If you have attended before, I have your email, so I will be sending out invites anyway. But again, please feel free to go ahead and join us that Labor Day weekend, and then we'll go ahead and have some more fun, more conversation, and we will continue on with that. Um, Go ahead. Let's see. Go ahead. We're going to do quick bio break till about 8:15, and then get yourself another drink. Make sure you go ahead and enjoy yourself and relax. We will go ahead and resume the conversation, but we'll just go ahead and leave this quiet for now, and then we'll be right back. Let me post that in the chat. Be right back at 8:15, and then we will go ahead and do that as well. So talk in a few minutes, everyone. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you shortly. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, you are refreshed. I know we're just starting an, a 1 minute early, but that's okay because I just wanted to be able to get back into it because, again, the conversation has been amazing and I've been enjoying it. And so I wanted to get back into it and have a good time. And now it's 8:15, so we are back where we're at. You are back online. What were you showing us, Paul?
Just
Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. I see some of those on eBay that there's still
you
people
really,
are still selling them. Yes, people some
really
people are selling them. There's interesting thing you put to bring that up. There is an artist. He's part of a band. I don't know what band he's part of right now, but the guy's name is Frank Iero. And how old's your son? Your son's how old's your son?
16. My
Ask him.
oldest son, he's 27.
But the one that's in the house, the one your baby is 16,
He's
right?
16.
Ask him if he knew who Frank Iero is. I only know him because Padawan 3, she likes one of the bands he was a part of. But
Right.
at one of the concerts and some of the interviews, he's wearing an ASU Rose Bowl sweatshirt.
Nice.
And I'm like, where did you? And I tweeted at him a couple times saying, "Where, beautiful sweatshirt. Where'd you get it?" And he never. I mean, obviously, I think he's just too famous for that to get back to anyone in his mentions, which is
Well,
fine. I'm just trying to figure. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool that he's worn it multiple times in multiple instances. So I was just curious to see.
my son, my youngest,
Yep.
my oldest son played rugby
Mhm.
for the school he went to. He was into like the MMA stuff and
Okay.
soccer, and I started paying him more attention to soccer
Right
because it
on.
would give something to, but he was not the big sports guy that I am.
Okay.
My daughter was a gymnast for a few years.
Right on.
Not really interested in sports, and my youngest even less. He always like, Dad, don't you know I'm allergic to sweat? Um,
That's funny.
he's actually uh, he's actually the youngest. He's actually the one that's my wife and he they used to go, wow, we got to go see the next Marvel movie and all
Oh,
this.
okay.
He's the one that's really I don't like the word geek. I know it's not a negative word anymore,
Right.
but I guess it's just an age thing
Okay.
where, you know, when I hear the word geek, I think 80s and I think pocket protector.
Yeah, that's fair. Exactly.
But he is the guy that's the sci-fi guy. I grew up a little bit of a Star Trek guy, and
Oh, look at that. Doctor
a
Who.
little bit of, yeah.
That's cool.
Um, and the and Doctor Who a little bit.
Yep.
Um, More so, obviously, in the last 5 or 10 years when they rebooted it, and even that took a while.
Okay.
Um, but
That's excellent.
you know,
I like it. So I got a question for you. I actually have five of them here, but this one I'm going to do for you. Um, Given your conversation, obviously, because you were saying, as soon as you retire, you're moving back to your second home.
oh,
But this one is tomorrow you go to the store, you buy a lottery ticket and win $25 million. What is the first thing you buy?
I buy a house for my kids.
Okay.
Not even me, because I don't care.
It wouldn't be like a kick-ass bottle of scotch or anything else. It'd be like, nope, I'm gonna buy them the house.
No, I'm really not even a Scotch guy. I mean, I'm trying to expand my repertoire a little bit.
With a little bit of the beard. Nice land shark there.
Um, I actually, because of Crafty
Okay.
and my coming together with this community that means a lot to me for a lot of different reasons.
Okay.
Um, and I said, you know what, I gotta expand. I have to expand my repertoire a little bit.
Right.
I have to try and do a little bit more. I actually went to a couple of beer stores today looking
Right on.
for a couple of different beers to drink. Even though I know I have a doctor's appointment in the morning and go to work and all this other stuff. Um, I I was trying to research some beers that were similar to the Land Shark.
Okay.
Okay, my neighbor and I we went a few weeks ago and got a couple of different ones, and I saw this one that I sent you the picture of.
Yeah, that one's cool. I don't even know where
Um,
that's from.
I don't know. I gotta look up the name.
Yeah,
Um,
whatever the name was,
something middle finger.
it's a it's a hilarious name, and
Yeah.
I
Yes.
bring it up too.
Space Station Middle Finger. And in the tagline comes like from one of my favorite comedy routines.
Okay.
From the dawn of time, humans have looked to the sky for the answers. If you've ever heard a comedy bit by Lewis Black, End of the Universe,
Yep.
it's like one of my favorite comedy bits. And that tag, and it came up as one that was similar to the land. And
Ah,
I
okay.
started looking for it, and now it's going to be like I have to try that beer now.
They're local though to you.
Are they?
I don't know. That's what I was
No, I
asking.
don't
I
know
was just
either.
like,
That's what
oh,
I'm.
okay, got it.
The name of, and I haven't, because of time, because I literally was looking these up last night.
Right.
Um, there is this Three Floyds Brewing Company, so I haven't had a
Interesting.
chance to look up.
Okay.
Crafty might know off the top of his
Yeah, he
head.
probably would know. It's like, oh yeah, I know that place. I know
you
someone
know,
that I know someone there.
yeah, he probably does.
You're right.
So I have to try it. I may not like it, who knows? But I now, because of the name and the tagline, and because of the connection to what I was looking up,
Right.
I have to find that beer now and try
Personally, I think it would be worthwhile. It's just like I would like force myself to like it because it isn't that. It's
it.
like, whatever that
Space
is.
Station Middle Finger. It's just great. I love it, and I love the name and so forth and so
Exactly,
on.
exactly. And someone's pounding on my walls. I'm not exactly sure if it's for me or for someone else. So if you see
Not
me,
my
if you
washing machine behind
no,
me.
actually, I hear it outside of outside of these things. So, but anyway, but let me ask you another question. So,
Okay.
all right, if you had to,
Oh, I love
the
these.
dreaded, if you had to, one, which one would you rather? It's snowing in your house all the time, or two, wear a slutty French maid costume whenever you leave the house.
Oh, I hate the snow. I hate the snow.
All right.
I hate the cold. So if people want to look at my legs, that's their problem.
That's
But
it. You know what? That's because at least you don't have to deal with the snow in your house. So back to what we were talking about. So I wanted to bring up, we were talking about one of my favorite teams, the Whalers, and I never got to see them play, so I'm trying to find ways of watching some of them and getting familiar with them as well. But the other one that we were talking about during the break before we joined in, there's the other one, was the other logo that I absolutely love was the Nordiques.
back Nordiques.
The Nordiques was actually another really cool logo that always was there. So that was one of the ones that I actually was curious about as well. But did they move or did they just
They're in
close up shop?
Colorado. They are the
They're the
Avalanche.
you know what it, and Mrs. Jedi is, who's a bigger hockey fan than I am, but she watches it for the fights. But she's always called the Avalanche the Big Feet
Yeah.
because of the patch, right? And I guess it's the mascot too, right?
I listen. If you pay attention to that stuff, I guess.
I was like, I didn't know. I was like, wow, they have a foot on their jersey, and that's why they're
Yeah, on
called.
one of the shoulder patches.
Yeah, exactly,
Um, the
exactly.
funny thing is, by sports gear was always a thing,
Yep.
but it really got ramped up when the Sharks came into existence.
Yes.
That was the really the ramping up of sports logos and merchandising
It
and so
was.
forth and so on. Because at that time, that unique color combination of the teal, the black, and the
Yes, it
white,
was.
it really started to boom in sports merchandise.
It was actually that's probably I think that's when Starter really made a big name for themselves, right? Because it was that who wasn't wearing that teal black white
Everybody was
combo?
wearing
Everyone was.
everybody.
And then after that, it was the Hornets with the purple and teal.
Right.
Right? Everyone started it was that whole time when everything and then the Magic came out and then it was just everything that just came out at that time. Everyone was just wearing it. But then you also had everyone kind of not necessarily doing new designs, but you were able to just kind of revisit the colors and the combos and the look, and everyone was just it was a renaissance of
Right.
sportswear. It
And
was. I love.
people were wearing shark stuff that had no idea what a hockey puck looked like.
No, exactly. It was just like, oh, this is a beautiful color combo, and it's sharks, right? So
Yeah.
boom, and it was before the .com boom, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And so you're
so
talking the early 90s. You're talking 91, 92, 93.
exactly.
Um, you know, and they were in San Jose,
Hmm.
which was far, as you know, is far enough away from San Francisco, where the city of San Jose embraced
Exactly.
that team as their own.
It was their own. They were like, it's no one else's. It's
It's
ours.
not
It's
San
our
Francisco,
town.
it's not
Exactly.
Oakland, you know. And that's also when everybody started doing the black thing.
Right. That was the spark for all a black alternative uniform,
Yeah,
because it was theirs natively. And I don't know
right.
if they ever went. It took them a while to introduce a black uniform, though,
Yeah,
didn't it?
it took a while,
Yeah.
um, but teams like, and I'll use my own team. The Mets started wearing a black jersey. No,
Yeah, that was a
no,
weird combo because it
no. I'm
was
sorry.
black with the it was a black with the blue and orange trim. It didn't look
Right.
right. It didn't look right.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
And listen, we all know we can sit here and we could do an entire summit, not just with me. Um, and I'm not as much of an I am an old school guy, but I do like that twinge of new school, so to speak.
Okay.
On my shelf over here, I have a black mini helmet and
Ah, yes.
graphite mini helmet and so forth. I have a couple of them.
Got it.
Um,
You.
Actually, the only one I don't really have is a Sparky,
Oh, interesting. That's the
just because it
one.
wasn't there my last trip. They didn't have
Oh, gotcha. Okay. We'll have to figure that one out then. We'll have to
it.
figure that one out for you.
You know, um, So I mean, we could you as you know, we could do a whole thing.
Well, I think that's one of the things I think we'll have to do is one of these summits. Hopefully, we can get Mr. Uniformity Cole Streeper to join us
Yeah,
and talk
which
about that.
does he does a great job, by
He
the way.
does. And actually, I'm actually working on a series with Jerry, Neely, and Cole
Right,
about. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm working on a series with them.
right.
So,
No, I get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's a good
But
thing.
you
But
know,
but I love them. I
so,
love the new combos. They're brilliant, especially the new hockey combos. I mean, just the creativity that they're allowing to do. And again, this is a good transition into ASU hockey, but just the combos that, especially with Adidas, so be willing to be so creative with the hockey team from head to toe. It's just a gorgeous look. Whatever. I remember last year's announcement. It was so beautiful.
and it didn't start out right. I'm
What
not
do you
going to lie to
What do you mean?
you. The first year they went varsity, they had black jerseys with
Mm.
maroon lettering, and it
Oh,
was hard to see.
yeah, that makes sense.
Hard to see. The next year they switched it to gold,
Yeah,
which made it much easier to see.
absolutely.
Because I remember, I mean, I went that first year. They played at a game against Sacred Heart,
Okay.
which has, which is, it's a D1 school, but there's smaller D1 schools except for hockey.
Okay.
Uh, Bobby Valentine actually was the athletic director.
Oh, okay.
The baseball player, the
Yep.
Met manager, he's the athletic director.
Right.
Um, and even at the game, it was hard to see.
Really.
Yeah, even at the game, it was hard to
Mm,
see. It looks great if you have it right here in your face,
yeah, if it's just still.
and and you're looking at it. It looks great,
Right.
but if you're trying to follow and see who's who, and you're not, and the jersey's not in front of your face,
Yeah,
it
there's
was not a good look.
yeah, it's not enough
It was
contrast
not.
between the letters and the jersey. Yeah.
Um, and I actually, the first time in my life I ever actually bought a jersey
Okay.
that was not a jersey for me to wear like in beer league softball, or
Okay.
the jersey that I used for coaching,
Right.
or any of that other stuff. And I have a maroon one and a white one. They didn't have the black. At that point, they transitioned away from the black jersey.
Hmm.
This, this was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
They still had them, but they weren't using them as much.
Right.
Um, Now I have to sit there and figure out, because at some point I'll get that next one. Do I want the gold one,
Yeah.
or I want the black?
Or
Because
even the gray one is beautiful. That gray one is
they're
there.
all. I
It's
mean,
just so cool.
I could go. You could go broke just buying. Because if I'm gonna, like I
Some
said, I
people do.
never buy jerseys.
Right.
I never do. Any jersey that you look at in my closet, my brother-in-law bought me a black Mets jersey. I've worn it a few times,
Right.
but it's a black Met. No, the Mets
You
colors
didn't
are
like that one
tough,
anyway.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, the Islanders had a crazy orange jersey
Right.
um, in the early 2000s. That I got that for a gift one year.
Okay. I
But
think I
usually the
remember that one. It had like kind of a blue trim to it
blue on the
too. Yeah.
shoulders, like with pointy, um, and you know, so outside of things that were given to me, I've never bought a jersey just to have a jersey
Okay.
until I bought those two hockey jerseys.
Are you not going to buy helmets like producer Wes and run around the house with those on either?
I'm not at that point yet.
Okay.
Maybe when I get a little older and I lose balance and I need something to protect my head.
Then you'll be able to have the one that you need. You're not
Yeah,
going to wear the one with the mask. It's all painted either. Freak
you
people
mean a
out.
goalie mask?
Yeah,
I
a
might
goal.
buy. I might do that. I
Like,
might do that.
and that was the thing too. Are there because I remember it does the goalie. So back to ASU's hockey. Does our goalie have custom masks for every game, or is it just something like it's like a one design for the season, or what
Yeah,
have you seen?
most goalies will have one design for the season,
Got it.
and and I don't know where the ASU goalies get their helmets and their masks done,
Okay.
but on our website we have a feature with a guy who paints goalie masks.
Oh wow.
His
Okay.
son plays goalie, and he got started that way,
All right.
and he just kind of does it because I mean I'm sure he gets paid for it. I don't remember exactly,
Right.
but it's as much a labor of love for the guy
Right.
as as it is a side business.
Well, I mean, they're so detailed and they're so such
Oh yeah,
it's such an art. Though
oh
I don't know if it's airbrush or whatever else it is, but I mean, it's just sometimes the detail that they're able to throw in there. I mean, wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong, but did wasn't there a Pat Tillman goalie helmet at one? I can't remember if there was or not.
you're
I'm trying to.
is it
Cole might
possible?
remember.
Is it possible?
Yeah,
Yeah, or
gotcha.
there might have been. Let me put it this way: if we went back and looked over the last 5 years, you probably had somebody with at least some sort of Pat Tillman image
Oh, okay.
somewhere on the goalie mask. Maybe not a straight Pat Tillman mask,
Right.
but um, because the coach, by the way, was was he just graduated from the Pat Tillman? He might have been in school at that time during the Pat Tillman year.
Got it. So Coach Powers graduated what year then?
I could look it up.
I'm trying to remember because Pat, I think I graduated a year after or 2 years after Pat Tillman. I can't remember. I don't know if he graduated. No, he graduated 97, I think,
Um,
or 98. I can't remember because I graduated summer 98. So I knew I was after him. So
I graduated in December of 1989.
okay.
So I looked this up. Does it even say what year he was? He graduated in '99.
So a year after me. Okay, so we were on campus at the same time then. That's always
Yeah,
curious. That's always curious to be able to talk and you know everything else and starting to meet some of these people and it's like, wow, we were on campus at the same time. So,
yeah. Well, it's funny because a couple of times, I've got between the podcast and going to games and
right.
which is still kind of a weird thing because I'm kind of in that in between zone. It's a little it the coach is the one I'm the most comfortable with talking to.
Okay.
He's the one I've talked to the most.
Right.
The guy Scott Strandy that does the podcast with me, he started the site. He's there all the time because he's in Scottsdale.
He's there. Right.
He's there. So, the players see him all the time. So we've done podcasts with the players and, it takes me a couple of questions to kind of warm up
Okay.
to who I'm talking to because I really I've spoken to some of the parents. Like the picture you posted earlier in the week, that was with Brinson and Steen Pasnick's
Okay.
dad at the NCAA tournament last year.
Okay.
We were at the alumni outing before the game. hosted by the Penn State alumni. That's why the
Oh, got it.
line is in the picture.
Right.
Um, so,
That's how that was. Okay, got it.
um, so a couple times I've talked to the coach, and we've had a few minutes where like, I had this professor. Did you have that professor? He's a Cronkite guy too.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Um, uh, I had this guy and I had that
Yeah,
guy.
you had all
We
those
got,
guys.
you know,
That's funny.
which is good because it gives you something else off the cuff to
Absolutely.
talk about.
Absolutely.
And a guy that's a friend of my, I know the guy, know him for a long time too. But he was, my brother's friend as we both lived in Arizona
Okay.
during the 80s. But he actually has knows the coach,
Okay.
on a more personal level. Before they went to D1, this was in the 90s. I guess they worked in
Okay.
various adult beverage establishments.
As we
And
all did in college.
no, while I visited them, I didn't work in any of them, but
Yeah.
I visited.
I was lucky enough to do both.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was
But it was still Devil House when I was there, and the Vines,
man,
the Dash, and the Warehouse, and
jeez. All great names. All
yeah,
such great names. And the Vine's still the one. Hopefully again that one. And I think it has a chance too of still standing up and
yeah. I think
getting
it
a
has something to do with the size of the lot, though, too.
it's
Because
weird.
there's it's not big enough, but yet, but big enough, but not, and they really there's nothing for them to do with the lot other than what's there.
Yeah, and then again that whole lot. I mean, it's the Vine, right? And then it's a gas station, and then I think it's like a restaurant, and then the Whataburger where that incident occurred. So it's like
Yeah.
that whole corner is taken up by stuff. So I mean, I think it would be quite the investment on the part of ASU to take it up if they've.
When I was there 2 years ago, I didn't recognize anything
It's
other than the
always
Chuck.
great. Yeah, it's always wild to go back, and it's just like you're looking up. I mean, it's like remember when I was there. I think Manzanita was still the tallest building on campus, right?
Right.
Everything else, I mean, everything else was still where it was. It was 2, 3 stories. Oh, I think there was an engineering building that was maybe 7 stories, but it wasn't anything like it is now. I mean,
No.
we're looking. I mean, it all just went up, and I mean, it's just I love
And
it, right? But I'm also walking around feeling like I'm ancient. So I
well,
kind
I am. So,
of
it's funny because when people ask me what was it like, I tell them when you're on the perimeter of the campus, you don't feel like you felt, but when you're in the guts of the campus,
yeah,
like when you're by the BU and I mean the MU,
MU.
the MU in the library and the phys ed,
Yep,
out phys ed buildings and all that, you definitely still feel
right.
like you're on the campus. But when you're on the perimeter,
It's
you're
unrecognizable.
like, where am I?
It's unrecognizable. And even then, now that there's work at the MU, like they have all of those swooping covers and solar
Right.
panels right in front of MU. I know that there's actually construction at Hayden Library, so they're
And I
changing.
swear to you, Jedi, that construction was going on when the last time I was in Arizona in 1999 for my friend's wedding. It was the last time I go. They're still doing this
It's the
construction.
same thing.
It's the same construction. Like, are you kidding?
That's my tweet. It's like the real winner. The real
Gee.
winner is construction on campus, because
Oh,
if they're not tearing something or building something, it's someone's getting paid in some
uh,
form or another, right? But yeah, but Hayden and then yeah. So it's always my thing though is yeah. I just love walking around campus and just seeing all the changes. I mean, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those curmudgeons yet where it's like, I remember this and that and everything else. It's just I love to see, and I think for me, I even love seeing downtown Tempe grow literally
oh
up,
yeah.
not
Listen,
out. They can't. I love the change of them going up, so it's always good.
yeah, and the weird part for me is that the Cronkite School is not on campus anymore.
They're on downtown.
They're in downtown
Yeah,
Phoenix,
they're downtown
and
now.
it was closed when I was there 2 years ago because
Mm,
it was during Christmas break.
right.
So I didn't get to go visit it
Yeah.
and see what it's like. All I do is ever get to see is pictures.
Yeah. You
And
get to
I'm
see,
like,
and if you're there, you just go walk around outside. That's it.
right, yeah, and that's what I did. But you know, and I don't even remember. When I was, everything was Cronkite was there. Channel 8 was in there, and
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Was that just when they moved, or how long have they been downtown? I can't remember now.
it's been a while.
Okay.
They hadn't moved yet when I was there in '99. So
Okay. So they were still on campus in '99.
yeah,
Okay, got it. So that's when they started to, because I think nursing is out there too. So that's kind of wild that it's just still, it's not recent. I mean, it's 20 years ago.
oh, yeah, I know. I just,
It's a blink because now everyone's like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. So
I mean,
back,
the building is still there, but
right. But
it's
someone else
something
is,
else
yeah,
now. Whatever.
someone else has occupied it, whoever they decided to force in there, right? So,
Yeah.
or make room for, which is always, like I said, I love going back to campus and just walking around, but I also don't like walking around campus because then I feel ancient. So I'm like, nope, nope, don't need any
Tell me
of
about it.
that. So back to ASU hockey. I know it was an exciting season this year. I know we did a lot of talking about this on the last summit, and I wanted to kind of talk about. There was just a lot of questions that you kind of shared with me that kind of helped me learn, right? And there
Okay.
was one of the things that I wanted to talk about is obviously, I'm trying to kind of figure out because I have so many points that I want to touch on, but let's
And
let,
by the way, I'm still learning too.
and that's but you know a hell of a lot more than me, which is what I appreciate. So that's why I'm trying to do. But I think I'm trying to figure out, the past and the present and the future. So I think, obviously, one of the big accomplishments that they were able to do was win a championship, right? As not as part of a conference, but as
I mean, get a tournament bid.
well, didn't they win?
They won a couple of years ago. They won a tournament in Vegas, a Christmas tournament in Vegas. It
But I
was the
thought they
first
won.
thing they won.
I thought they won a national championship as like
Oh, you're talking about the
AICA.
club level.
Yes, at the club level, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah. So that's I'm
Um,
kind of working
right,
back to current. So,
working back. That's what really gave them the impetus.
and that was
Um,
from how long were they a club before? Because didn't they weren't they a club and then they like kind of made a leap and then they got that championship in a very short amount of time.
well, at the club level, there's also three different divisions.
Okay.
There's ACHA D1, 2, and 3, and you kind of earn your way up, almost like European soccer.
Okay.
Okay. And there are people that know way more about that system than I do.
Okay.
Um, but they, the they were really at the lowest of the low for a while.
Okay.
Um, and kind of when Powers got there as a player is when they started moving up.
Okay.
Um, he'll tell you he wants that school down south to go varsity D1 so he can kick their butts again. I think he's still cranky about the one time he lost
I don't blame him.
him.
I would not, because I mean if you only have one, and if you have one blemish, and it's that one, that would be the one. Because wasn't there a streak that ASU hockey had over them, and then they kind of like it was broken on some weird game. I don't know. I was living here in the Bay Area, I think, when they were still club, and that happened.
Yeah, it was like I said, they had beaten them like I don't know, and I don't have the exact.
It
It
was
was
like
20
100
times in a
games. It
row,
was something
25 times.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It was some ridiculous number, and eventually it's got to happen, right? No,
What's the someone found a nut or whatever the hell that is?
right. The blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while. And they won that club championship. I want to say 2013.
That was a while back. I remember making an infographic for it because I remember I got a map of the United States, and
Right,
all of them were on the east, and then there was just the lone one in ASU. There was
right.
like no one had one within the I think was it DU, was it Dallas? I don't know if Denver had one or
Denver.
whatever it was. Yeah, but like there wasn't a championship within like 1,000 miles of ASU or something
You
like
mean
that.
a club championship?
Yeah, club championship. Yeah.
It's funny because once again, that team we don't talk about in the before Powers.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, was drawing 4 or 5,000 a game, maybe more, to the Tucson Convention Center.
Oh, I remember. I went to a few of those when I was living
Okay,
down there,
and
and I didn't
there
know
were
any better.
always there were always rumors that they were going to make the jump,
Okay.
and they never did.
Well, it doesn't say. I don't. They always had the attendance, but it always never felt like they had the backing,
Well,
whatever
they
it
didn't.
was. Yeah, and I think
You have to have the backing
right.
from the athletic department, um, and so I think they won the club chain. I think it was 2013.
Okay, and then they made the leap the year after, or
And the next year, they Penn State was its first year as a varsity program,
okay,
and they went to Penn State and won one of those games as a club team.
right. I do remember that.
They lost that year. I want to say it was this either the quarterfinals or the semifinals. And the thing about the club championship is it's a hard championship to win. You have to, if you're not in that top seeded group,
Okay,
you have to win tons of games
okay,
on like and in like 4 and 5 nights, because they're not, they don't have the time to sit there
right.
and or the resources to sit there and play every other night. So if you're winning that club national championship, even if you're one of those top seeds, at some point you're winning 4 games in 5 nights.
Wow, that's unreal.
And at that point, the guy Justin Emerson, who's up in Vegas now,
Yes, absolutely.
uh,
He was huge on this
inter-
too. Yeah.
yeah, he interviewed Ray Anderson,
Okay.
and he flat out asked him, "What would it take to put a D1 hockey team in this school?"
Mm-hmm.
And the athletic director said, "Money." And I think it was less than a week. They got a phone call and said, "Here you go, but you got to do it now." It was like, take it or leave it.
Right.
And they
Move
took it.
fast. It was a really fast. I remember it just like they were like, yeah,
But they
let's talk
played
about it.
later that fall. It was their
Wow.
first varsity season. I gotta, they played a mixed schedule.
Yep.
Some Division 3 teams, some a few club teams. Uh, they played about 22 out of 34
Wow.
Division 1 games. They played enough to technically be eligible for the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
But they obviously,
It was an
they won
early
10
exit, but they
games.
were still able to.
I'm sorry.
It was an early exit, but at least they were there.
They technically played enough games to be eligible for the tournament. They only won
Okay.
10 games for the season. You know, um, they were still playing that season with some club guys,
Okay.
um, and a bunch of transfers. Um, I think if you were to ask the coach, as I'm just trying to look up the record here,
Sure.
if you ask the coach, that might have been the one thing he he kind of, and maybe we should have waited, but it didn't happen that way, and it is what it is.
Yeah, they had to jump in. I mean, it was like, all right, here's the
Yeah,
money, go. It's like, all right.
go. It does. It's not telling me what the record
And
was,
that's
but
interesting that while you're looking that one up, that's very interesting, right? Because it was like a matter, it was very fast. They had to make sure it was
very
happening.
fast.
But the other thing is that the way you were talking about who they were playing from a D1 and everyone else, it almost
Right.
seems like it's very Bobby Hurley esque in the sense that there's no fear as to who we're going to play. We will play
No, no.
anyone, anywhere, anytime. We're going to play you.
Well, I bring it back, and when I try to describe it to people, um, as a college, I use the college football comparison to Florida State.
Okay.
When Bobby Bowden took over that program,
Mm-hmm.
they were one of the worst teams in the country. Okay? And
Mm-hmm.
he basically said, "We'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime."
Okay.
And if you go back and look at those teams that he had in the 70s and the 80s,
Right.
forget about how much fun they were to watch, because they threw the ball all over the place. All right. But they did. They were one of those teams that was a powerhouse but they had no problems going on the road
Right.
to play at an Oklahoma, to play at a Notre Dame, to
Right.
play at Nebraska, to play at these schools that never wanted to travel. Because if you're Nebraska, why would you give up a gate of
Oh, of
100,000?
course. Exactly.
Okay. Um, but at that time, he's trying to build a program. So he's like, okay, well, we'll get one game. It'll be on national TV. We'll go there and play. We'll kick your butt, and then we'll go home.
Exactly. That's just huge for like you said, for culture, right? Because then it's just like, and again, you're seeing that bring come to fruition in both the hockey team and in the basketball team, where it's like, you know what, you
Right,
want to be up there,
right,
that's who you have to play against. And it's interesting too, because we were talking about this on the summit as well, because what I love about that is they see ASU hockey as the upstart. And it's like there it's I remember we're having this thread about, and especially
right.
with Denver, they
That
were like,
right,
it's like they were talking all kinds of smack online, and then ASU
right,
slapped them in the mouth and won
right.
that first game, right? But it's just, I love the way you shared that. It's just they see us as an upstart, which I guess we are, but still.
Well, you know, it's different. The I would say the difference in basketball is there are so many teams in
Yeah,
basketball
makes
that
sense.
and you know to have ASU come and play you anytime, anywhere is 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 people don't really blink an eye at that.
Right.
Nobody's sitting there and saying, "Oh, well, who is this ASU thing?" What are the, you know, where Kentucky, where
Yeah.
oh, um, there are fan bases and programs that are not happy that ASU is in a hockey as a hockey team.
That is just that baffles me. What have you heard though? I mean, what is it that you've heard that?
Well, like you said, the whole thing with Denver.
Okay.
They're sitting there and I think it was Josh Schaefer who was doing the game on the stream at that
Okay.
time. And he goes, Denver comes into the community rink and gets their butts kicked. You know, um, is it part of it? Like, hey, show me you're legit first
Mm,
before we. But there are also teams that are like, man, I got to recruit against 75-degree days in December and January.
yeah.
And I've said this, and I'll say this over and over again. The coach has said we don't want kids to come here just because of the weather.
Yeah.
But ask anybody, ask any of them,
Right.
why did you pick ASU? And that's the first thing they say.
The weather.
I mean, I don't care. Listen, it probably isn't the only reason,
Right.
okay? But it's still the first thing they say in every interview. Everyone,
It's the weather.
you
How can
know.
you how can you
Uh,
not? I think that's very interesting, where it's like, okay, I can't, I'm recruiting kids and we're all in these awful cold ass spots, so we don't have to, so now we can go ahead and start talking about tradition or everything else. But now, just again, given what Coach Powers is being able to do, not only from tradition and from culture and from location, but now you're offering a world class education,
yes.
and it's in a brilliant spot where you can. But this is another thing too, and I think we mentioned, someone may have brought it up, I don't know if I did, but it just kind of rang. How is it, how much of an influence on ASU hockey is the Coyotes organization, or not necessarily the Coyotes organization, but those who have gone through the Coyotes organization, former players, right? Are they more of an influence in helping the
Uh,
program along?
this is what I'll say. Uh, the coaches said it, so I mean, I don't know what else to go by.
Okay.
That it's all started with the Coyotes because when I was in school there, okay, you couldn't find a bar or a place to go watch NHL playoffs. The only
Okay.
place that I could go that wasn't my home was a place called the Tempe Teepee, which was
I know that one. Where
um,
was that?
Well, you know the road that goes behind along the Salt River there, which was a dry riverbed when I
Rio Salado.
yeah. That road led to it wasn't quite Mill Avenue,
Okay.
and I'm pretty sure that it was over there somewhere, or
Oh,
maybe it was just on the other side of Mill
near
Avenue.
the bridge that burned down,
Yeah,
whatever that was.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
that side of town.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the only place that you could go that actually said, "Hey, if you're a hockey fan," and people don't realize how many Canadian citizens are there during the hockey season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even Ralph Amson mentioned there's a bunch
Right.
of Canadian expats down in
Yeah.
Maricopa. So yeah, there's tons of
Right.
them down there.
Um, and that was the only place you could go that was showing games. So you could because at that time you just had the big giant satellite dishes,
Yeah, exactly.
and you know, and if I wanted to watch an Islander playoff game and it wasn't on what then they had the contract was USA Network, I had to find I had that's where I had to go to watch a game, and this was in the middle of them winning cups.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you're
That's
talking.
I wonder why they never did. I mean, I guess maybe it was just something that the Phoenix fans just it wasn't they had an appetite for.
Um, well, the city wasn't nearly. The city was still transitioning from a quote unquote small town
Okay.
to what it is now.
Exactly.
And I tell the closest comparison I can think of is Albuquerque is what Phoenix was in the 60s and 70s, but
Okay.
will never get to be what Phoenix is because they have 3 seasons instead of 2.5.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Albuquerque has like 3.5 seasons because they're up in the mountains. It's a beautiful city.
It
I
is.
like it. Um, but it's kind of that's when I was there, that's the way I felt about Albuquerque.
Yeah. That's
That's
actually a
what
very good
Phoenix
point.
was before Phoenix boomed.
Yep.
Um,
And it continues to grow, but that's actually
oh,
very interesting. That's a very interesting way of seeing it because Albuquerque does grow, albeit slowly, but
much slow, much
there's
slow.
not a boom. And you still see it's interesting like you said, you see so many spots of new construction in Phoenix where you not as much in
It's,
Albuquerque. I love my time. I love visiting Albuquerque. Don't get me wrong,
that's
but
great.
it's a great comparison of what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And you like I said, I mean, half the valley wasn't even there when I went to school there, especially the East Valley, which is obviously where I spent most of my time,
Got it.
all my
Yep.
time.
Yeah, there are
I mean,
parts of that town that are just unrecognizable now.
yeah, I mean, the whole Queen Creek and parts of Chandler were Chandler was like this,
It was
and
all
now
farm. It was all farmland. Now it's
I
all
mean,
houses.
yeah, it's that whole East Valley, that far East Valley, basically was desert
It was.
when I was
When you would drive that way you would go out that way to go tubing on the Salt, and you would be looking for someplace little spots to like the grocery store
nothing
or
there,
whatever else. No, but
literally.
there'd be little something that it's okay. This is where we got to do to restock before we go ahead and head into the Salt. But there
It was
was
probably a
nothing out
Circle
there.
K.
Sorry.
It probably was a Circle K.
You probably exactly because that's all that was usually out there because then you could get gas and stuff and it was always packed because that was the only thing that was out there.
Right.
That's
So
fun. Yeah. So no, and that's interesting, right? Because now, like you said, given that it gave them a solid foothold to be able to
right.
go ahead and be that upstart, right? But now, they're able to go ahead and start establishing themselves as someone that other schools have to recognize and have
Yeah.
to acknowledge.
Um. The fact of the matter is, and you can conject. Uh, Everybody likes to say that they would have made their second straight NCAA tournament. They probably would
This year, yeah, absolutely.
have. But uh, like I said, there are certain fan bases that are not happy. Okay.
It's just because again it's more of an insular type of
Right.
this is ours and
The
we don't.
college hockey community is very small.
Okay.
There's if they start up a new season, there'll be 62 teams, 61 teams. Um, uh, and then St. Thomas in Minnesota is coming on, and Anchorage is dropping their team, so it'll stay at 61.
Was it Anchorage or Alabama? Did Alabama drop theirs as well? I don't
Well,
remember.
Huntsville did.
Yeah. Okay.
They officially announced dropping the program, but they did a fundraising drive
Ah. Okay.
and saved the program. Again, it's the second time it's happened.
Wow.
ASU actually got a transfer from Huntsville as a
Hmm.
defenseman
Okay.
because in that week that they announced they were dropping the program, obviously
People were looking.
players, well, people were looking, and you can transfer immediately and be eligible. There's no
Yep.
sitting out. And that's with any sport. That's not just a
Yes.
hockey.
Absolutely.
Um, but they saved their program, and they actually added a team that Long Island University actually added a team
I think I heard
during
about
this
that
whole
one.
thing,
Yeah.
which is insane. I'm glad.
They must have
I'm
been saving the
grateful for
money
it.
to do it. Yeah. They must have had it.
It caught a lot of people most people by surprise.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure somebody had to know, but anybody I talked to was like, we had no idea. We started a women's program last year.
Yes.
LI,
ASU or LI. Okay.
LIU, a
All right.
varsity. ASU's women's team is still club.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, I think, and this is just me. I don't have any inside information on this,
Mhm.
But if and when they start that building and get that done,
Yes.
I think that is one of the long-term goals for the athletic department
Okay.
because the tough part at that point is the facility.
Yeah.
That's where the expense is.
Right.
Okay? I'm not when I hear people talk about, well, you got to pay 18 more. I'm sorry, I'm not somebody that agrees with that. That the scholarships and all that other stuff is the expensive part. I don't know if I necessarily I don't. Once again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here talking like I know what the heck I'm talking about.
Right.
Even though it sounds like I do. Okay.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. The expensive part has got to be the facility.
Well, that's a huge
Okay?
investment, right? That's the
Right.
multi-million. I mean, yeah,
How
you're
much?
paying something for, yeah, you're paying someone's scholarship, but I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
mean, come on.
fraction. And even
Yeah.
then over years, that's still not
Right. You
compared to this.
what did you stop the athletic dining room that all the football players and soccer players and the volleyball players? Are you going to notice 20 more meals?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
They're
sorry, you're
not.
not.
Absolutely.
Um, the tough part of that will be just like the men's team would be the travel budget.
Hmm.
Okay? But
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
you want to be number one in innovation? Let's go.
And that's the other thing too, but it sounds like they're putting money into that the travel budget and everything else because they
Right,
believe in it. But again, they're producing, right? So again, it's
right.
like, okay, now that it wasn't, if it was just like, okay, here and there, but no, if the team is producing, then it's absolutely an easy investment, right?
And not only is it are they winning? They last year when they made the NCAA tournament, it was only their third full D1 season.
Jeez.
They won 20 games,
Right.
made the tournament. Probably should have won that game against Quinnipiac.
Mm,
Did that layoff because they didn't have a conference tournament definitely showed up in that first 15 minutes of the first period.
right.
Okay, and there's no question that there had to be some nerves because
Of
you
course.
know, um, but they're
Especially,
winning.
yeah. Especially your first time out. There's always going to be nerves for that first
Right,
tournament appearance.
right.
Absolutely.
They're winning, and they're getting players signed to professional contracts.
Which is huge. I mean, they're definitely touting that a lot.
Okay,
Yep.
they've had probably at this point. I mean, when you want to talk about the players that have really gone through the system
Hmm.
over 3 and 4 years, because hockey's a little different than the rest of it.
Right. We'll talk about
Um,
that shortly.
uh, you've had um, players sign minor league contracts. A year at the end of last season, you had the first ASU player play in the NHL.
Yes.
Okay, and when he and I I don't remember. That game was, I made sure I had access to watch that game
Right.
and to watch Joey Decord skate out onto the ice in Buffalo with his Ottawa jersey and his ASU mask and his ASU leg pads and so
Man,
forth and so on. That gave me chills.
I bet. I bet. No,
That gave me chills. Uh,
that's what is it? It's just like it's almost it's like the represent it's like representation, right? It's like that's someone from my school is on the ice finally, right?
and
And
it
it's out
and it,
there.
and he was wearing stuff that he wore 2 weeks before that, playing with an ASU jersey on.
That's
Because she
funny
still
too.
had
That
the pitchfork on the goalie mask and the maroon and gold leg pads.
not that I
Because
did mind it, but I wasn't sure like the if the team was like, okay, you have to wear this, but they let him wear it. And I guess maybe
well,
is that something
you
that
know,
as a goalie it's comfortable or is it
that's first of all, most goalies don't like to wear new stuff right off the bat in games. They like to break it in. It's just like a baseball glove.
oh okay. It's not a superstition thing.
Well, for example, like if a puck goes off new goalie pads, new leg pads, it's tougher to control because the pads are stiff.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay? It's like when we were growing up, we put a ball in our glove, set the pocket the way we liked it,
And
and
work it.
tied rubber bands
Yep.
around it, all kinds of rubber bands to make it tight. And we put it under our mattress, or we put it under stuff to
Yep.
to make it heavy and that sort of thing. And you broke in your glove.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's the
Goalies are
same exact thing.
the same thing.
Okay, got it.
And it happened so quickly. There wasn't going to be time and it was also the end of the season for him to
Oh,
get
okay.
Ottawa stuff. They only had like 2 or 3 games left, and they got him into the one game,
Yep.
and he started this season in the basically the hockey equivalent of Double A, but he
Okay.
quickly got moved up to
So they did bring
Triple
him up. Okay.
A. I if they when they start up again, even though we're in the middle of the playoffs now,
Mm-hmm.
this whole weird,
Whatever it is, exactly.
there's a very good chance he's going to make his first NHL roster long term.
That's crazy. And so now he is a AAA. So is he still tied to Ottawa, or is it something that
Yes,
he could get?
he
He,
was. Yeah, he was in the. Is it Binghamton? The American Hockey League is the highest level of minor league hockey.
okay.
Okay. Um,
But is it something that is he tied to
yeah.
Ottawa, meaning he'll get pulled up to Ottawa, or could someone
Yes.
else pull
It's
him?
like baseball in the minor league system. They get
Okay, so
called up.
then he gets pulled up that way, unless he gets traded.
Right.
Got it. Okay. And is that he was a first, right? But do
First player that wore an ASU. He was the first ASU player
and
to
then
wear
is
an
it
NFL uniform.
anyone else? Is there anyone else that has been in there? He's the only
No,
one as of right now.
first one.
Okay, got it. So
It is possible because their top two defensemen for at various points in the off season
mhm.
signed NHL contracts.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, because I
Yeah.
think I remember seeing something like that.
Brinson Pasnick, who was the team captain,
Right.
and the first guy in an ASU uniform to reach 100 points, uh, signed with San Jose.
Okay.
There's a chance, based on salary cap and some other things, that he could start the season well, he'll be in San Jose because their minor league team is there too.
Oh,
Uh,
so he's going to be here regardless. Got it.
he could be there regardless with his brother, who signed a minor league contract.
Okay.
Okay, with San Jose.
Yep.
Um, but Brinson has a chance to make the NHL roster because once again, when you deal with a salary cap, and Brinson can skate.
Okay.
He can, it's hockey's about skating now
Right. Being able to do
as
that.
opposed to just being physical like it was when I was growing up.
Really?
You watch games now from the 70s and 80s, and you're saying to yourself, "Oh my lord, how did these guys?"
It's that
Oh, it
I
was like
can only
run.
imagine I can only imagine that the speed is just so much different too.
Oh, it's much different, much different,
Yeah.
much. It's
And
like
what
football players. They're so much bigger and so much faster.
do you think it's just an evolution of the game itself, or do you think there was at one point in time there was one like one team that just said, okay, they're faster and more surgical, if you will, rather than just smash mouth hockey.
Well, it kind of transitioned in the 80s.
Okay.
You had the you were still in that period of time where in the mid 70s you had the Flyers win Stanley Cups, and they did it as much through intimidation. They had really good players. They had Hall of Fame players, great goalie.
Right.
Okay, but they did it as much through physical intimidation
Okay.
as they did everything else. And then Montreal won 4 cups
Mm-hmm.
in the late 70s, and their nickname was always the Flying Frenchman. I mean, they had guys that were for the time incredibly fast.
Okay.
Guys like Von Cornway, whose nickname was the Roadrunner, Guy
Wow.
Lafleur. Okay, these guys flew. Okay, and back then they weren't wearing helmets, so people would watch the hair fly.
Right.
And then the Islanders won their cups, and they kind of were a transition team where they had guys that could play physical, but that were skilled players too.
Okay.
Um, and then that transitioned into the Gretzky Oilers.
That's what that's what Rob was mentioning, the Broad Street Bullies.
Broad Street Bullies, right?
Yeah.
The Flyers, yeah, Philadelphia, or as I like to say, Filthy Delphia. um, and then transitioned to the 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 Oilers and Gretzky, who
That's what I was going to ask. Is that
are,
era then?
that's when speed really started to become a part
Okay.
of hockey.
That's late 80s, so
Late 80s,
89.
late
Okay.
80s,
Yep.
early. Well, the Islanders won their last cup in 1984. So Edmonton 85, 86, 87, 89, and I think 90 because they won 4 cups in 5 years.
Got it.
Um, the one year they didn't win, they beat one of their defensemen accidentally put the puck in his own net. We lost
Oh.
to their biggest rivals in Calgary.
Okay.
Okay.
Flames, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And they won the cup. I think that first year that Gretzky was in LA.
Oh, okay.
So I think maybe it was 5 cups in 6 years
Wow.
or something to that effect. And at that point, you had teams that we got to slow these guys down because we can't keep up. And that's when it became basically everything became a line of scrimmage.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And um, teams started basically playing purely defensive systems
Interesting.
to try and slow guys down. And they were allowed to use their sticks, and they were allowed to grab, and they were
Mm,
allowed to basically do whatever you wanted.
yeah, exactly. To
Um,
slow them down.
slow anybody down. Then they had their first lockout,
Yeah, what year was that? I remember that.
2004,
Okay, I remember that.
and part of when they came back was we have to do something to speed up the game. We have to start clamping down on this, not necessarily the physical play, but the clutching and the grabbing, the stuff that's literally always been against the rules.
You're right.
They just decided we have to start calling this because we are in the entertainment business,
Yeah.
and we're not in 6 markets anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 25 markets or
Right.
what have you.
You're all over the place.
Okay, so at that point, they started. Even though the Devils were winning cups with what they called the left wing lock, which was trying to force everything into a corner.
Okay.
All right. They have increased how they officiate the game to allow for players to show off their skills.
Okay.
If you put your stick around a guy's waist, they're calling a penalty.
Okay.
You put your stick between the guy's legs now, where they used to be able to, they called it a can opener.
Yep.
Where that stuff doesn't go on anymore, and it goes on a little bit more in the playoffs because officials don't want to,
Right.
they don't want to decide playoff series.
Yeah.
But and ASU actually got caught by that
When was
a
I
couple
think
of years ago
when
when they
was that?
opened up at Notre Dame.
I do remember that. For some reason, I remember seeing that tweet
That
stuck out, and I'm glad. Yeah, now that you bring it
that
up,
that first game, he lost 8-1 to open up the season.
right?
They basically had a guy in the box the whole game. And what
Because
had
of that.
happened? Yeah, well, what happened was the NCAA decided they were going to start calling things in a certain way,
Hmm.
and basically forgot about ASU. They told all the
Um,
teams in the conferences when they had their conference meetings that this is the way we're going to do things,
yeah,
and they forgot that ASU was out there. Now, the next night, I think the game they lost in overtime, or they played.
they were able
Went,
to play clean. They were able
right,
to play the rule because they were made
right,
aware of it, but they still weren't
right,
made aware of it when it was supposed to happen.
right,
Okay.
and
That was done. That's tinfoil hat. Now that's a conspiracy. They
well, no, listen, they you know, they didn't say, oh no, but we didn't forget, we didn't do that. It happened.
yeah,
ASU was only like in their second full year as a D1 team.
right.
And it is,
Someone forgot to call.
yeah, to somebody, it just slipped through the cracks. I mean, it happens, right?
But that's how that was. Yes.
That's how.
And so now, like you were saying, it's like the talent is there. We mentioned this as well
Yeah.
on the summit as well, because there is one are 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 there hockey recruiting class rankings? I
Yes.
believe so, right. And so
Yes. ASU was ranked second in
right
this past
behind who?
class. Denver. Denver or North? No, I think it was North Dakota.
North Dakota, I would imagine.
North
Now,
Dakota.
have we played North Dakota?
No.
Is it because they don't acknowledge us yet? They're like,
Well, they
come
do.
see us. Okay.
They do. Listen, North Dakota fans. Um, let's just. I will give. They travel.
Do they? They're
Yes.
they're ferocious fans then, huh?
They are. They're all like, if you're playing a neutral site game against North Dakota, they were actually scheduled, I think, to play in Vegas this year.
Okay.
I don't remember against who, but that place would have been full of green and white
Wow.
North Dakota fans.
Okay.
Because where would you rather be in December, North Dakota or Vegas? Um, but they definitely they travel. Um, I would say that they are one of the places that is not enthralled with the fact that there's a team in Tempe. Um,
Is they
Eventually, they will play, but
they're just not. It's just I mean, there was a line. I think I mentioned this in the summit one time. There is this one line in Parks and Rec where the town is protesting this one guy who's threatening to tear down this beloved breakfast stop, and he's like, "Oh, I thought about it, and this and that, and everything else, and I'm changing my mind, and I'm not going to tear it down." And everyone's like cheering, "Yay!" And then he's like, psych, I'm not going to. I'm going to tear it down and make a mint, and goes on this big old rant. And then he ends the rant, I am nourished by your hatred. And so it just sounds like it's such a great spot to be in, from
there is some of that. There is no doubt.
that we just
Um,
get that this hatred. And it's just, I mean, God, I can't wait. I mean, it's just, this is going to happen. Coach Powers is
it'll
going to,
happen eventually.
well, Coach Powers is going to bring a championship to Tempe, and it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, it's just gonna chap so many asses, and it's just gonna be,
Oh,
oh my God, it's
oh,
gonna
like
be so,
it will 100% do that
oh my goodness. And then
without question.
it'll be
Um,
a good, I mean, my house will be warm and in the summer, and cool in, well, warm in the winter and cool in the summer, because all that hate is gonna fuel it. I mean, it's just, it's,
it is a situation where I sit there and I laugh because every player says, who doesn't want to play here, go to the brink in sandals and so forth. The other thing that hockey players like that you can do plenty of at ASU is they're golf junkies.
Oh my God.
The swing
Where
trans
else are you gonna play?
the swing translate. The motion of taking a hockey shot is physiologically
All that
very similar
interesting. Okay.
to a golf swing. Okay? Um, and uh,
Is it all like putting and the driving and the everything else? It's the all of them, or is it more
no, well,
one particular swings are more
it's off
like?
the tee. It's off the not putting. Putting is a completely. That's why they say you drive for show and putt for dough.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, um, that but the swing is relatively physiologically similar
Okay.
to taking a shot in hockey.
Okay.
So,
So that helps them if if they're
if
out
you're good at
driving or what.
something, right? If you're good at something, you like it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, most
exactly.
of the time,
And
uh,
and then that's the other thing too, right? So I mean, we were talking about this also, and I keep mentioning this, but when we were going through, like you said, they're ranked, and that's
yeah,
definitely something where a lot of the it's a ranked class. But
yes,
one of the questions that I asked, right, is that, and the way I posed it, right, is that even though, albeit I am still peripherally aware of how football and basketball recruiting work, right, and what you're looking for, and what are the key positions and
right.
so forth, right? You know, and I think I've asked you this question, but what is the one key position that you start with when you're trying to recruit a player for a hockey team? Like, what do you start and where do you build around?
No, listen, you know, it's it's like baseball. You win with defense up the middle.
Okay.
Hockey's the same way. You start with a goalie, defense, and centers.
Okay.
Okay? Um,
Center meaning the one at the center ice, and then defense in the back, and then the
right.
goalie.
Well, yeah. Well, when you watch a game and you start watching a game and they line up to start a game for a face-off, it's a 3-2-1 inverted
Okay.
pyramid, so to speak.
I understand. Yep. So it's
Okay,
center, two wings, the defenseman, and then the goalie.
correct.
Okay.
Um, and you have to, if you can have great teams. If you don't have goalie, you can't win. I mean, it gets magnified in the playoffs, but
Right.
you can't win if you don't have a goal. If you don't have the confidence that your goalie is going to bail you out far
Mm,
more than he's not,
right.
um, you're not going to win. Um, and it doesn't matter unless you're going to have unless the other team's not going to touch the puck, and we know that that doesn't happen.
Right.
You're not going to win.
How many of what's the depth? Right. Hey Rez, how you doing? Good to see you. Rez Devil, the Queen of Levine, says hello.
Oh yeah, what's up, Rez? That's my
um,
man right there.
the depth for each position, right? Obviously, there's five guys at once, but I mean,
Um,
how far deep do you have? Two, three goalies? Or do you more?
yeah,
What do you?
well, on a college roster, at least, and I don't want to sit here and my reach back to college hockey started a couple of years before ASU started their program.
Okay,
All right, I've always been a hockey fan all my life, but once again, growing up in New York, it was the NHL.
right.
A buddy of mine that I met through being an Islanders fan is a BU alum,
Okay.
Boston University. So in being friends with him, I started watching more college
Oh,
hockey
okay.
and following BU. And the day that ASU announced they were going varsity, he blew up my phone, and I was laughing my butt off. Um, but most college teams will have three goalies.
Okay.
Um, probably 8 to 9 defensemen
Hmm.
and 3, 9, 12, maybe 15 forwards.
Wow. Okay.
Well, because you play four. most teams will play 4 lines of forwards in a game. That's 12 players.
What does that 4 lines mean? That they just rotate those there's four
Well,
lines of three, or what does that mean?
it's 4 lines. Ideally, that's what you want to do. You
Okay.
want to have that fourth line be good enough to be in the regular, to get a regular shift in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, uh, you don't. It allows you to keep your better players fresh
Okay.
if they're not having to double shift. If you can
Right.
play 4 lines and that fourth line, not necessarily going to score a lot of goals for you, but keep the puck out of your own net.
Fair. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Um, Defense is a little different because a top defensive pair will play 25 to 27 minutes a game,
Okay.
which is almost half a game.
Okay.
Uh,
And again, like you said, those are the ones that your defensemen are there. They're preventing. That's again, it's actually 2 layers of protection, right? But that's why
right.
you have your defenseman there.
Um,
And then, do you ever sub out a goalie, or is it rare?
if you do, it's because
It's
he's
because you
hurt,
took a dump. Got it.
or well, sometimes a coach will change a goalie, not because the goalie's playing poorly, but because the rest of the team is.
Hmm.
And it's the only way you can, I mean, outside of voicing it, which they do, the only way you can quote unquote send a message sometimes
Mm-hmm.
is to change a goalie.
Okay.
And players know, they know that they know the coach is changing the goalie, not to embarrass the goalie,
Yeah.
but because you guys are playing so badly that, you know, he's if it wasn't for the goalie in this particular situation, instead of it being 3 or 4-0 in the first period, maybe it's 5 or 6-0 in the first,
Yeah. Okay.
because you're not playing any defense, or
Right.
you're not blocking any shots, or you're not helping the goalie out with the rebounds or
Right.
what have you, and you're hanging him out to dry.
There's only one, and it's technically the message of there's only one guy on this on
Yeah,
the
there's
ice
only
that's
one.
there's only one guy on the ice that's making a difference, and I'm pulling
Right,
them out.
and I can bench a guy for a while,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but if you're a forward or a defenseman, you can only be benched for so long
Right.
before you have to get that guy on the ice just to give your other guys a break.
Exactly. Exactly. You have to be.
So
That's very interesting. Where those other lines are much more, not necessarily. I guess the only word that I'm coming up is utilitarian, in the sense that they're able to give people a rest, and if they need to, they're able to score. If they're good enough,
right,
right? But still, it's again, you're really trying to allow your front lines there. But to your
and
point, go ahead.
and you want to have, especially if it's a close game, you're which you're not really necessarily going to pull the goalie in a situation like
Right.
that. You want to rotate those players so that when you get to the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game,
Mm-hmm.
your top players, your top offensive players, if you're in a 1 goal deficit or down 2 goals, they'll coaches will put those top 3 guys on the ice almost every other shift,
Interesting.
try and get back into the game.
Okay.
To try and catch it, to try to tie the game.
Absolutely.
Um,
How long is that shift usually? Because that means that it gives them a break to rest. But how long is
most
that rest?
ideally for forwards, if you're going more than 45 seconds, you're on the ice too long.
Interesting. Wow. That's I
That's
didn't
for
know. I
forwards.
mean, that feels like a blink. That's wild.
It is, unless you're out there.
Okay. Then you're going for 45 seconds, and it's like, okay, I
And
need to get
yeah,
out.
it's um, guys will take longer shifts,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're like, you'll see situations where if a team's in the offensive zone,
Mm-hmm.
they can and they're hemming the other team in for 60 seconds, 75 seconds, 90 seconds.
Right.
You'll see the defensive guys get tired, but if you're attacking and you're aggressive, as long as that play keeps going
Yeah.
and you still have the puck and it's like keep away, we're good. And the defensive guys get tired. And
Right.
at some, but in the normal course of things, as you go up and down, 30 to 45 seconds, maybe, maybe 60 for a forward line,
Wow.
maybe. But if you're getting close to 60 seconds, you're probably on the ice too long
Okay.
as a forward. Defenseman, like I said, different story. Top defenseman, like you go to, if you went and looked up Josh Maniscalco, who just signed with the Penguins organization,
Okay.
and Quentin Pashnik, who was ASU's top defensive pair these last 2 years, they were averaging 25 to 27 minutes a game.
Wow.
It's only 60 minutes of playing time. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
That's where you usually see the biggest difference in talent level. And I'm not, and obviously you have to put that the second pair will get 15 to 18 minutes.
Interesting. Okay. Enough to
And the
give them a
third,
rest.
right. And the third pair will probably get 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
Um, unless you happen to be 4 to 6 defensemen deep where the talent level is not that much. And it's not that those 56 guys are not good. They're just not what those top guys are.
Of course. Absolutely. That's why they're that fifth and sixth line.
That
And that's interesting, like you were saying, because if the forwards are up there 45 seconds, are you saying that that's how long? How long is it for a defenseman? Are they there for several minutes?
I would say a good measure of a defenseman shift is
Mm-hmm.
probably 90 seconds,
Wow. Okay.
75 to 90 seconds. Um,
And this is a brilliant insight because I always see them rotating and you always see people coming in and out, but now it absolutely makes so much more sense now the way you're describing it. So thank you.
for whatever reason, um, it's more anaerobic to play
Mm-hmm.
defense.
Okay.
I mean, aerobic to play defense and anaerobic to be a forward.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the way it is. Uh, and is there a reason why? I don't know. It just is, and
It's
that's the
just
way.
that's the way it is. That's very interesting.
Um,
But now, like you said, so now that we have the position, you have everyone run. Then coming back to, recruiting, right? Is there? How do I phrase this? Do we always like football? You always got to bring in some amount of position group, whether they be linemen or linebackers or whatever else it is. Is there is there a goalie in this class that's coming in?
yes,
Okay.
the guy's name is Cole Brady,
Okay.
and he was a fourth round pick of the New Jersey Devils.
Okay.
He's supposed to be a stud.
All right.
Um, you know, uh, the thing is, when you recruit hockey players, it's not football for the most part. You might get a few guys that commit 2 years out.
Right.
You have guys that verbally commit for hockey 2 and 3 years out.
Wow.
If you go to the various mainstream college hockey websites,
Mm-hmm.
you have uh, recruiting classes out to 2023.
Wow. Okay.
They're small, but they're there. Okay.
There's only a handful of right.
You know,
And that's how
ASU,
you were saying?
ASU is bringing in 6 guys this year,
Wow.
maybe 7, between the transfers and the recruits.
Is that an average size class? Or is that
See, this is where I'm still trying to figure that out.
okay?
Hockey recruiting is so much different.
You were saying that like it's not even they're looking at kids in high school, they're looking at them at clubs or like post school clubs or whatever else it is.
Well, they just changed when you can offer kids,
Okay.
or they can commit. You have to wait until they're for lack of a better term, juniors in high school.
Okay.
They were starting to almost be like college basketball, where you were having kids verbally committed 14, 15.
Wow. Okay.
and and getting out of hand as far as I could tell.
Right.
Um, with the whole pandemic, they've already said the fall sports guys are going to get an extra year,
Yes.
and that's whether they play or not.
Right. Exactly.
I guess there was at one point talk where they were going to do that for the whole year,
Hmm.
but I guess they decided to wait season by season.
Yeah. Exactly.
Technically, hockey is a winter sport, even
Yep.
though they start in October.
Yes. Exactly. They start playing in October, but they're still
Yeah,
because again, base basketball practices around then. But like you said,
right,
it's by a month, so that makes kind of
right.
makes sense that it's still winter. Okay.
And the hockey season actually goes longer than the college basketball season.
When does it end?
Usually it ends. They usually have the Frozen Four a week after the Final Four.
Oh, okay, got it.
They'll have the regional. They'll have the regional tournaments,
Right.
the four regions, um, and then they'll skip a week where they usually play the Final Four.
Okay.
And then the next week they'll play the Frozen Four.
Yep.
So it actually goes on. It starts during the football season. It ends after the basketball season.
How many games is that?
A regular season is somewhere in the neighborhood of 32 to 36 games,
So
depending
it's
on
almost
play.
two a week then.
Yeah, every weekend. Usually
Okay.
play Friday, Saturday nights.
Okay.
You'll, if you're in a conference, which ASU is not yet, um, it varies. It's a little bit different. Like last year, they played the last they were 2 years ago. They played 13 weekends in a row to end the season. They were gassed.
That's huge. That is tough. It's
Yes,
wild. Because
yes.
again, now is there is there a league that wants ASU, or that's like again back because they are so insular? They're like, eh.
Well, first couple of years, when ASU wasn't winning games, there was talk about this league or that league.
Okay.
Um, the approach that, once again, Coach Power took is we want to play the best. You got to, and we want to
Right.
play the best. Um, at one point, the league that's been the best league in college hockey for the last 7 years is called the NCHC. That's
Yes.
North Dakota, Minnesota Duluth, Denver, Colorado College, Western Michigan, um, St. Cloud State. I'm probably forgetting one. Um, and, and, and and there's probably one or two others. Like I said,
Right.
I'm probably
But it's
forgetting
that region. It's the part of
that
Colorado, and then
league.
that region
Right.
there. Yeah.
Um, and I think all things being equal, that's where ASU would prefer to be
Okay.
for a lot of
Damn.
different reasons. First
That'd
of
be a
all,
hell of a league to be part of. Jeez whiz.
in the worst year the league's had, they've got 3 teams in the NCAA tournament, and
Mm.
there's only 16 teams.
Yeah.
There have been years where they've got 6, 7 of those 16 teams in
Wow.
that conference.
Yep.
Okay,
Mm.
so your strength of schedule is heavy into deciding whether or not you get
Right.
into the NCAA tournament. It's called the pairwise, and um, it's based on strength of schedule. It's based on who you play and where you play. If
Oh,
you beat a
interesting.
team, if you beat a team that the computer says is not as good as you are,
Mm-hmm.
you get less for it if you win that
Oh,
game at
interesting.
home
Okay.
as opposed to winning against them in their
Over
building.
there. Right.
Okay. Um, so it's a giant mathematical formula
Mm.
that they instituted probably about 10 or 15 years ago
Okay.
to make it as objective as they possibly could.
Right.
Okay. The NCHC has won 4 or 5, the last 4 or 5 national championships.
And again, that's
Minnesota,
back to again wanting to be in the strongest
right.
group or
And
circle.
let's face it, there's a couple of things. Like I said, first of all, it's the best. It's had been the best conference since it was created.
Okay.
So you're talking 2013. Um, they have, like I said, 4 of the 5 last national championships, and um, excuse me. Um, then you got the fact that you have 2 teams in Colorado,
Yep.
which
Are they long established? Obviously, Denver is, but the other
yes,
one? Okay,
actually
they
they are.
both are?
Actually are.
Okay.
Colorado College actually won national championships back when college hockey was much different. When they
Okay.
first had the first few NCAA
Wow.
tournaments
So they've been
for
around a
college
while too.
hockey.
All right.
Denver is considered a blue blood. They've won about a half a dozen national
Yep.
championships.
Okay.
And ironically, not that I'm trying to, once again, not patting myself on the back, was one of the schools that wanted me, was trying to get me to go there when I was in high school. Not
Oh,
because I was an
interesting.
athlete, not because I was an athlete, academically,
Right. Of course.
Um,
And you made the right choice anyway, just like I
yes,
did.
that was the way I looked at it. There's
Right.
only one other place I wanted to go, and I didn't get in there, so
Which was?
Fordham.
Oh, okay. F
Uh,
you. F
yeah,
you.
that's basically what they told me when I tried to get in.
Right.
Um,
Georgia Tech told me the same thing.
and if you look at a lot of the guys that are doing uh, in sports journalism now, a lot of those guys that I listened to as a high school student
Okay.
are are voices of teams. Mike Green, who does the NBA,
Okay.
was a Fordham student when I was in high school, trying to figure, and when I
Oh,
discovered
right
that's
on.
where I wanted to go,
Right.
um, and so forth and so on. Um, but Denver and Colorado College, Denver's the one like a half a dozen national
Yep.
championships. Um, and and compare when you consider the road trips that ASU has to make as an independent,
Yeah.
which is good for me because they're basically the only team that comes to the East Coast.
Interesting. Other than basketball on occasion, but it was,
Basketball does on occasion,
yeah,
okay,
but
but
that
for the
makes
most
sense.
part, the ASU's got 2 places to go. They've got New England, or they have the Upper
The
Midwest.
Midwest. Yep.
Okay, um,
Oh, look at that. Rob worked with Mike Breen at WFAN in '95. That's wild.
yeah, I'm sure he'd love to talk about that experience. Um,
But
so
that's actually very interesting too, because I mean, regardless of what happens, ASU has to travel regardless,
right,
because
but
the closest teams are the ones in Colorado, right?
yes,
Okay.
and you would have Air Force as a non-conference
Oh, okay.
team.
Are they independent
So
as well, or what are they?
no, Air Force is in a conference called Atlantic Hockey.
Oh, so they're with teams that are way in the hay on the other side of the
They
country.
actually are, but
Okay.
obviously because they're a military academy, travel is not their problem.
Yeah.
They,
Like,
they don't have travel costs, and Army is in that conference, and they want to
oh,
stay
got it.
with Army.
Yep.
Uh, there have
That's
been
That's cool. I think, like I said, the conference that you were naming, where everyone else is at up in the upper Midwest, would be geographically would make sense. It's just a matter
yeah,
of whether they would
I mean,
allow us in. But I mean, I think we talked about this as well. Is that
and
I have never seen North Dakota play, but I would love to see that
right,
arena.
it's supposed to be great.
I heard it's supposed to be
I'm
the
not gonna.
place.
It's supposed to be great.
Yep.
And it is the team in the state. So I mean,
Even
it.
over the Bison, huh? They're more
No, that's
crazy.
North Dakota State.
Yeah, but I thought it was North Dakota and then North Dakota State, but I thought they
Yeah,
were
but the Bison are North Dakota State.
right. No,
Right.
exactly. I just thought they were both. You know, they
Oh, you
they're
mean the
both not.
football team? Yeah, that's a close second.
Okay,
North Dakota State football is a very close
it's
second.
a close second. Okay, that's
Very
actually
close
cool.
second.
That's actually cool to know for perspective, because
Okay,
they're
but they don't have the history or
mm,
the time that North Dakota hockey does.
okay.
You're like I said, you're talking a blue blood
Yeah,
at the highest level. North Dakota State is what we used to call, and I still call it 1AA, but
yeah, and I still
you
do that. Yeah,
know,
I still
uh,
call them D2. It's just
Okay, I
easier.
mean,
It's still
you know,
easier. I'm
you
like
know,
whatever FCS or whatever the hell
yeah,
else. I'm like, yeah, that can get out. That can
exactly.
just go away.
Subdivision. No, it's one double A.
No,
Easier that way.
exactly. Why are you
Come on.
changing it? Come on.
Yeah. I mean, all those teams are playing Division One basketball anyway. So,
Exactly.
you know, um,
But to your point, right? It's like that was you were saying that just with the conference and the alignment. I guess that's what it would
and
end
it's
up
really
being.
not that hard to travel to a lot of those teams. You're flying into Minneapolis,
Okay.
Phoenix. How hard is it to fly from Phoenix to
It's
Minneapolis?
not. And then that's the beauty of Phoenix is that it's so central and it's just Sky Harbor's a massive hub. You can go
Right,
anywhere out of Phoenix.
right. There's been talk that some of the coaches in Hockey East were trying to convince the other coaches that this is an invitation we might want to make. Because once again, how hard is it? How hard is it to fly from Phoenix to Boston?
It's just a time investment. It's not
Yeah,
hard. It's just a time
no,
investment,
exactly. There would be a couple of teams in each conference
right?
that you would have that extra long bus trip after you got off the plane.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you don't.
Right.
And and then the other thing that the NCHC has um, is January, February, and March. You can turn on the CBS Sports Network on a Friday night, and sometimes even on Friday night and Saturday night, and see a game.
Oh, they'll have on there. They have a contract with that. Interesting. Okay.
Yes, they have a contract with that
Yep.
conference, and they have the conference tournament on that channel,
Mm-hmm.
so forth. So we could sit there and say, well, it's not ESPN and that or that place in Connecticut that
Yeah.
you know it's the worldwide. You
Entertainment leader. But even then, you know,
but ESPN Plus is not the same thing as
no.
actually being, you know, now the tournament is all on ESPN,
Yeah, absolutely. That's something they have their hands on.
but the conference tournament, the conference stuff is is CBS Sports Network,
Okay.
and I'm sure. Let's just, for argument's sake, say that's where ASU ends up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think they're going to look at that schedule every year and say, once, and I still say if and when because it's just how I am.
Right.
That building gets done.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't think that those producers and the directors and those guys are going to be like, how many trips can we make to Tempe in December,
Exactly.
January,
Absolutely.
February? Of course they are. It'll be the first thing they look up.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, why would I want to be over there? It's like, hey, Tempe, yeah, and like you said, we'll get some golf in or whatever else in, and it'll just be
Yeah.
we'll stay there for 3 weeks and
Well,
just have everyone
yeah. I
come to
mean,
us.
yeah, exactly. I mean, seriously. I mean, you
It's
know,
a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant position for ASU hockey to be in because, not only are they being able to establish themselves and play and prove themselves as a contender, a team to be taken seriously rather than what some of the blue bloods consider an upstart, but also, like you said,
by the way, you said series, and my phone went off, and like I was asking Siri a question.
well, I'm sorry, Siri. And
That's
then
okay.
and then with the future of it, yeah, just and you mentioned it that the arena that's coming, there's plans and there is no other thing of derailing it's paid for in a sense for the new ASU hockey arena to
This is what I
begin.
know. This is what I know from people telling me things
Right.
like, I mean, do I
It's
get?
it's not gospel, but this is what you've heard, and we're not holding you to anything.
Um, yeah, because as far as I know, and what people have told me, that uh, they haven't done anything publicly about it because of the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and the optics of it.
Right.
But they're doing all the preliminary work. If you go by there, it's fenced off,
Yeah,
and
someone said that it was just cleared out, like
yeah,
almost ready.
um, you know, theoretically they're supposed to start building in November. And as I say on our podcast, uh, you know, you can construct a building.
Right.
and practice all the safety measures you need to practice. They're doing it in Seattle. Now, yes, it's the NHL, but they're doing it in Seattle.
Yeah.
They're doing it at Colorado College. They're doing it here for
Wow.
the Islanders. Okay. Did Seattle and the Kraken and the Islanders buildings have pauses? Yes, they did.
Okay.
6 to 8 week pauses till they figured things out.
Okay.
Once again, it's outside.
Right.
You have space enough where people don't have to be on top of each other
Exactly.
to do the work. And to build a building, how many jobs? 2 years of construction jobs to put a building up. In a situation where there's a lot of people out of work, you think that the powers that be, and I don't mean Greg Powers,
No.
don't understand how that works,
Right.
and the money's there.
And that's the key, right? The money's there. Now it's just a
There-
matter of the other
there's-
resources.
I don't know if they raised every penny that they needed to put the building up,
Right.
but Michael Crow is not going to say, "Oh, you still need 20 million? Go ahead and start anyway."
But they're not that far off either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's not. If they were 20 million off as opposed to say 1 million,
Yeah.
I'm just pulling numbers that I have no idea
No,
about.
exactly, but they're all
Pulling numbers out
example.
of my-
Agreed. I
Just trying
understand.
to illustrate.
Yep.
He's not saying go ahead and start. So
Right.
clearly, whatever it is that they have is enough.
Yep. To begin and proceed forward.
And hockey, in terms of NCAA revenues, in schools that have hockey, only football and men's basketball brings in more money.
That makes sense with the how big the Frozen Four is, right? Because again, that brings a
But
lot
I'm
of
talking
attention.
about it in individual schools. I'm not
No.
necessarily talking about the overall NCAA at the individual schools. If you take the 60 schools,
No, absolutely.
have,
But again, I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is that the Frozen Four is very visible. So a lot of people in there, a lot of eyes, and a lot of interest in it. And because there's a lot of interest in it, then it trickles down to all of those other teams out there that, yes, there's interest even at the individual school level. Because again, there's going to be eyes on it and people are interested in it. At least I think.
And most of the unless you're one of the schools in Boston or Minneapolis, most of those schools are small, or quote unquote small media markets.
Okay.
That's why an ASU jumping into Division I hockey. Now, listen, no one's going to sit here and say that they're going to be bigger than the Suns. No one's going to sit there and say they're going to be bigger than, I don't know. You want to say the Cardinals? I have my, when I see a Cardinals game, it's still half full of Bear fans. And
it's filled with the half team. It's filled with the other half.
If only half. But it will give the sport itself a visibility in a big market that, other than Boston and Minneapolis, it doesn't really have.
Right. Okay. And that's what Rob was saying earlier in the chat. That even Sun Devil hockey helps helps the Coyotes, helps the whole perception of hockey.
Because let's face it, when you win, everybody pays attention.
Oh, absolutely.
Doesn't matter what the sport is. When you win, people pay attention.
Winning cures all.
Even those years that when ASU won a couple of women's college World Series, how many more people watched college softball that year? And ASU hits how many alumni?
Me? I was watching the hell out of that. Absolutely.
I tried to go to one of the games they were playing here.
Oh, yeah?
The game got rained out.
Oh, so you didn't get to.
So,
man. But like you said, going forward, right? The stadium is going to be, how many is it going to seat?
About 5,000.
Okay, so that's going to be.
And
how does that compare to some of the other arenas that you see that are in other in other teams? other than the blue bloods like North Dakota,
Yeah,
because I think
North
that one's like
Dakota
13 or
probably.
15,000. That one's big.
I honestly, you know what? It'll be in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
It'll be bigger than the smaller schools,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really the right size. There aren't so many people in
Unless
there.
then it turns into a fire hazard.
Right. They'll have the second sheet, which if you go, and I guarantee you, if you looked at the various municipal or public rinks in San Jose,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're in San Jose, right? I
A
mean,
Bay Area. I'm north of San Jose,
Bay Area. No,
actually.
I know you're in the Bay Area. I just don't know the geography of where you are.
Let me
But
see. Hold on. I'll actually. So this is San. So if you look at your left hand, this is
okay,
San Jose. This is San Francisco.
okay,
This is Oakland, and then
right,
there's a range. There's a range of hills. I'm
okay,
like right here, and then
okay.
there's
Because
some mountain ranges, and then it's so I'm like up the way from San Jose.
okay,
So
because my older son is actually in San Jose.
oh, he's down there. Okay, right on.
Yeah, his girlfriend slash fiance is a grad student at San Jose State.
Okay, well I'm East Bay. I'm more the Pleasanton, Livermore, San Ramon area.
Um,
So
but
you
if
may
you
know that.
go and look at any place where they have youth hockey, or any place where they have where you can't get ice time,
Because it's just
can't
yeah.
no, there's just not enough ice.
No, there isn't. No, I mean there's one place right up the way, and it's always packed, and it's always
Right.
packed. It's so everyone's using it, whether it's leagues or practicing or even birthday
Yep.
parties or
Yep.
whatever else it is. And like you said, there aren't a lot of spots that you can go to
And
skate.
the the 2 years I coached ice hockey, you're practicing 5 in the morning, you're playing games 10 o'clock at night.
Yep,
Um, if you're at a tournament, that first game is starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and going till 10 o'clock at night.
yep.
And you know, there's never free ice time.
No, it's
There's
always
just
packed.
not.
Everyone wants it. Everyone wants
And
it.
you know, between the second sheet of ice that will be available
Mm-hmm.
when they put that building up, whatever concerts that they have in there, and they're
Mm-hmm.
planning on having concerts in there,
Right.
and you could have some decent concerts with a crowd of 5,000 people.
Oh, absolutely. Because
You
then
know,
you also have the floor and everything else. So yeah,
right.
absolutely, you can have a bunch of people there.
Um, they're probably going to do um, some volleyball in there and some wrestling, uh, maybe some gymnastics.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like the building's not going to get used.
It's going to get used quite a bit. It's going
Right.
to get used a lot.
And when people talk about the differences in the conferences, if you go back and look at it,
Mm-hmm.
it's when the Big Ten and the SEC, they started making investments in those non-revenue sports,
Okay.
and they started investing in those facilities. Like if you know, the Pac-12 was always the conference in volleyball.
Yes.
Okay, till about 10 years ago, when the Big Ten started to build volleyball in
Mm,
smaller venues that were designed for those teams.
right.
And when you get a crowd of 5,000 in a 5,000 seat building, as opposed to having 5,000 people, and I'm just using this in a 13,000 seat building,
Right.
it doesn't
No,
look
it
the same.
doesn't. Absolutely.
It just doesn't. So you could have equal numbers of patrons in the building. When you're recruiting somebody,
Yep.
are you gonna are you gonna be more impressed by the 5,000 people in the 5,000 seat building,
Right.
or the 5,000 people in the 13,000 seat building?
Exactly. Because now you're looking at, okay, I have 100% capacity and everyone's losing their mind and it's loud and rowdy,
Right.
or it's a third full.
Right.
Yep.
And and the timeline is really not that hard to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't want to, and I'm not going to sit here and say this is only an ASU problem.
Right.
Okay, but like I said, if you look at how many different facilities Big Ten schools built, how many or refurbished. The same thing with the SEC, and then it just compounds itself
Right.
because of the various revenue differences. Um,
That's very interesting that you said that because I didn't think that building a specific. I didn't know that they build specific facilities to do that. It's like for volleyball, right?
yeah,
It was able to be something that we can do and showcase still within a smaller arena, but it still
I-
impacts how well we can recruit and you know make this a great program. So that's very interesting saying that as well. Obviously, in this time now, everyone's trying to, you know, hopefully keep their sports programs afloat. But it's a very interesting model that it's good to see that we're adopting, right? That we are getting that smaller arena to be able to go ahead and make sure that kids are recruiting and then it's showing off well.
well, I mean, you you said if you're an athlete, you want to play in a full building, even if
Absolutely.
it's a smaller building, you want to play in front of a full building.
Yeah.
I mean, they did it with Sun Devil Stadium, right? They cut down for a lot of different reasons when they redid the building.
Right.
Okay, once again, when you win, it doesn't matter.
Right. Winning cures all.
Winning
Winning
cures
cures
all.
all.
Um, and I'm sure there were some architectural reasons
Mm-hmm.
that they cut down the size of
Right.
they cut down the capacity. I couldn't tell you what they were. I'm not an architect. Um,
Went from 74,000 to 53,000. It
right.
went, which is
Um,
huge. It's
it's so
significant.
big. I mean, listen, it's when you if you go to Nebraska and they have 100,000 people in that building, or you go to Michigan,
Yeah.
they're not all paying booster prices.
No, they're not.
They're not all paying booster prices. They're those seats in the last, I don't know, 2 dozen rows. You think they're charging more than $4 or $5 for one of those tickets? I could
No,
be wrong, but I don't
but
think they are.
and even then, if it was $4 to $5, the key is that they're getting those 100,000 plus bodies in there. That's
Right,
the key, right? I mean, it's like when you go to the big house, you expect it to be sold out, and it ends up being sold out anyway, right? Where
right,
that's always one of the things that we're always talking about. Autzen is, I think, when maybe Autzen, maybe Husky Stadium. There's just a handful of them that are always packed, right? And I
right.
think that's always something that ASU has always struggled. I mean, we're down to 53,000. Why can't we get 53,000 people in the seats? But you know,
Well, and I don't. I'm not trying to use this because to me it didn't matter. I was there in my 20s and I didn't give it. I didn't give
right,
whether it was 98 or 108
right,
or 78. I didn't care. Um, you know, when I first went, I wasn't in an air conditioned press box. Even when even when I went back, my first year, that year '82, when they had their first legitimate chance to go to Rose Bowl,
right.
uh, you know, I was in the stands. I had
Okay,
my student season tickets.
okay,
Um, 84, 85, uh, when they also, especially 85, when they had some chances.
right.
Um, we were not in an enclosed press box. It was open, so
Because
it's
that's
not like
let's see. So then in '86, I'm trying to remember because I'm trying. I think I have a video of a Cal game from that year. The
that was the game they clinched.
so then it was the southern part of the stadium was still open, right? It wasn't the student building. It wasn't the
Yeah,
Carson
no,
Center.
there was no, yeah,
It was still open, right? And same thing with the north end zone. That one was still
yeah,
open as well, but that one hadn't yet been built. But I think that's when that was, right? So
yeah. And
yeah,
then back to, yeah, and then that Cal game is when they clinched. I think that game was 49-0.
that what it was. Wow.
It was something like that. I know that it's funny because that night, and I don't think that we woke up that day and it was them having a chance to clinch the conference
Okay.
until earlier games, and
Oh.
the Cal student radio station, which was is and them and Stanford were in much different positions than we were
Hmm.
at ASU. They asked for a body to do their to help them with their broadcast that night. So I
Okay.
wasn't actually in our booth.
Oh, really?
I was in the with the Cal students
Okay.
because it gave other people a chance to do. It just gave me an extra chance to give somebody else to get to do some play by play,
Oh, got it.
and uh, and and so I was doing the quote unquote color for the Cal student radio station that night, and
How
I'm
was
sitting there.
that?
Um, not that it wasn't weird until the end when they're asking me like, "How does it feel?" And I'm trying to say to you, "I'm not on the field. I didn't play. I'm excited."
Right.
My head was always the journalist.
Okay.
You know, um, I want. You know, I grew up and I grew up with play-by-play guys like Marv Albert,
Mm.
and even though he was doing Jets games, Marty Glickman,
Okay.
who, if you look the name up, you'll see that he was the godfather of sports broadcasting in
Okay.
terms of descriptions, especially basketball, as much
Okay.
as anything. Um, and he was like the mentor to guys like Marv Albert. And as a Mets fan, I grew up with guys like Lindsey Nelson,
Mm.
who did the Cotton Bowl for 1,000 years. Um, and those guys were the guys that I looked up to, not be partially because they were great play-by-play guys, but they were also objective and willing to say, hey, that play stunk.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, they were not homers. You
That's the
obviously,
best, though. When you get someone like that, that's not a homer, but that can call the game like that. Oh, that's so good.
um, as a new as a Mets fan, if you watch every year since they started their own network, their booth is ranked. Their TV booth is ranked second or third in
Wow.
baseball every year. Um, you know, actually, Keith Hernandez actually gets in trouble sometimes because he's too good at Mets. And I'm like, no, let it go. We
No,
want
do
more of
it.
that. But it was kind of an awkward night because the game was over early.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was. ASU ran back the opening kickoff of the second half,
Oh,
and I think
dear.
that made it 35-0 or 35-7 or whatever the heck it was.
Right.
Game was over at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was just a countdown for basically,
Exactly.
25 minutes of the second half.
Of just
You know,
going and
and I know
going
who
and
my
going.
audience is because
Of
I'm on the.
course, you can't be on there. Yeah, you got to be objective
But,
as much as you can.
but I would have been doing this. I would have been the same way if I was doing the KASR, which is what the call letters were,
Okay.
plays when I was there. I would have been doing the same thing
Right.
with with our broadcast that I was doing.
Right.
Because that's the way I grew up. That's the way uh, I wanted. I never wanted anybody to hear anything I did and say, "Wow, you are a complete homer."
Yeah. Oh,
And
God.
was I rooting for ASU to win? Of course I was. But
Exactly. But
and it was easy because they were winning 35-0.
yeah.
Um,
How
you
were
know,
how were the Cal people? I mean, were they kind of dejected during the game, or were they just like, eh?
no, it was. They were like, "Wow, how great is this for you?" And what does this feel like?
Yeah, poor guys, because they haven't been at the Rose Bowl since the '40s.
And I'm trying to, and obviously I'm not trying to degrade them or
Yeah.
put them down. I'm like, this is awesome. When I was a freshman, they had this opportunity and didn't capitalize, and
Right.
this opportunity capitalize, and so forth and so on. But this is a great night, and let's just say tomorrow morning there'll be a lot of Advil taken.
And there was.
And
Where
there
would
will,
you Where would you go after a game? Or was it? Or was like,
Me
yeah? Would you go
personally,
someplace? Would you go? Would you go out after a game, or did you have to work and do
it was
post?
too. It was too. By the time I got out of it, by the time we got out of there, maybe we'd go to the warehouse for 1 or 2
Yeah,
because it was
because
across the street.
last call was 1 o'clock back in the
1 o'clock.
dark
Yeah,
ages. Yeah, so
and if
you
you're
could.
playing a game that starts at 7, or by the time you get out,
Yeah.
I love day games. They were, well, you just had to shift your schedule because, Jay, I'm not going to lie to you, and Rob will verify this. If ASU was playing the night game, happy hour started at 10 a.m. Happy hour
Exactly.
started at 10 a.m. and by 3 o'clock you were done.
Yeah,
You were done, and you were done because you had 4 hours
you had to go to
to
the game.
clear your head and get to the park
Right.
wherever whatever
Wherever, whatever you had to do.
yeah. And I am not going to say that we didn't maximize those opportunities.
That's what youth is, though, man. I mean, if that's youth, though.
And here's
If
the
we
funny
tried that, we wouldn't. You wouldn't see us till Monday.
uh, and maybe I stopped because I knew I had to work that night.
Right.
But there, like I said, you and if it was a day game, that was a different story in and of
Yeah,
itself.
exactly. Because at least you
And
would
and
have
it
some time.
and it's funny because when I tell these stories, especially the drinking stories,
Right.
there were a few. Um, when I used to tell these stories to my wife, she would call me a liar.
This is the Sun
Because,
Devil way.
well, part of that is because in that part of my life, I really was not doing the drinking that I actually had stopped.
Okay.
There was a time in the late 90s to probably 2010 or
Hmm.
2011 where I drank very little.
Okay.
Not because I had to stop, just wasn't in me.
No, exactly. No, I agree. I know what you're talking about. There's a time in your life where you're like, eh. I mean,
Right.
there's a time for where you can do a lot of it, but then there's another time in your life where like, okay.
I, I, Now I picked it up again when certain things changed at work, but that's another story.
And then,
But,
well, Rob's sharing that he does has no recollection of what you're
well, that's
talking
because he
about.
was there for part of the drinking. I can't remember either.
Well, give me one of your favorite ones. I know it's coming up at 10:30, but I want to hear one of your favorite stories that you got that you can share amongst
Okay,
family and
well,
friends.
let's put it this way. All right. And this is where you say, thank whatever deity that you wish to deify, that cell phones didn't exist,
Oh my
and
goodness.
so forth and so on. A buddy of mine who I knew before
Okay.
Rob, uh, this was in the first group of friends that I had, the first group of friends that I had at ASU through a Halloween party.
Okay.
Um, uh, this was in prime Magnum PI territory.
Okay.
I had my mustache, which was mine,
Yep.
my own. I bought a Detroit Tigers hat. I wore the Hawaiian shirt.
Right on.
Okay.
You came out as Magnum. All right.
And I don't know, maybe it's 2 weeks later. Um, the guy who threw the party said, "Hey, I got the pictures. You want to see them?"
Oh God.
I'm like, "Pictures?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
Wait. What pictures?" Okay. Now I am
Yeah.
not making it. This is 100% on the level.
Okay.
So he shows me these pictures.
Okay.
Now, they're not quote unquote embarrassing to where anybody was not wearing clothing.
Right.
There was a certain amount of physical contact in these pictures,
Okay.
and the person that contact was with was in a Dolly Parton costume.
Uh,
And I just asked one question.
yeah.
I said, "That was a girl, right?"
Uh,
And he says, "Yes." And I said, after that, I didn't give a crap.
it didn't
I
matter.
just tell me whatever you want.
Show me more.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't remember any of it.
I was gonna say, because I mean, you just remember you kind of said I was dressed, and then you say like then you skip to the story 2 weeks later.
I don't remember any of it. There was another night where our friend Arlene, once again in this first group, um, was throwing a party.
Okay.
Asked me and the guy who threw the Halloween party to come help
Okay.
her set up for the party. I was passed out before the party started.
Oh man. So you missed the whole thing. They drew on you or stacked stuff on you.
It could be. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Oh my god. And these were all house parties. Now, where were this was close to campus?
Yes.
Okay.
These were in apartment complexes. These, there's tons of them. They're still, I'm sure they're not the same, but
Right, they're still
there.
around.
Rob's brother and I one night spent the whole night just drinking in a, well, I mean, he was in once, his apartment complex had a hot tub.
Okay.
I love those things. I don't care how hot it is. I'll stay in that thing all day.
All right.
Okay. And I remember that night because we were drinking oil cans.
Oh dear. Foster's, right?
Foster's, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not realizing it. And you have 2 or 3 of those.
Yep.
And that's like,
Yeah, you don't realize it because again, they're just like, oh, you just keep going, but there's a reason there.
And it's only one can.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're not like,
yeah, you don't realize it's like a mini keg. Rob saying his brother was a lobster.
Oh, he was. Oh my God. Oh, I mean, he was so red that
It was a burn. It was sunburn, or was it just from
no, it was at night. It's just from
so it's just from the sitting in the tub.
Yeah, I was lucky. Being half Italian, I got lucky to get more Mediterranean skin than Rob and his family, who's pasty white.
They are a little fair. That's
so that
funny.
stuff didn't bother me as much. But I mean, those are just two. And I'll tell those stories. My wife would be like, "I don't believe you," because I've never seen you that drunk.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because she never. I said, "How many witnesses do you want me to produce?"
I wonder if that dude still has those pictures someplace in some weird vault or whatnot.
I don't think he does. He's threatened to find them. I still in contact with him.
You should unearth those just to say, holy crap.
If he had them, I would take them. Just for the humor of it.
Exactly.
But you're talking 84, 85, maybe 86. So that's a long time to hold on to pictures from a random Halloween party.
But it was, as the kids say nowadays, it was an epic Halloween party.
Oh,
so
I would love to tell you it was, but I don't remember.
From what you were told, it was epic.
And that's just 2 stories out of a couple of dozen.
Right. Which one do you remember? These 2 you kind of like. What was the one? Which one that you remember? Stuff going down.
All of it or partial? I'll tell you a Rob story.
Yeah. Okay. Let's expose Rob.
This was just before I graduated, and I graduated kicking and screaming. By the way, I didn't want to leave. They made me.
You had to get out.
So it's the last football game, and if you know anything about the record in that last football game of the regular season in the 80s, it was not good.
It's against them, right?
Yes.
That was the 89 game?
Yes.
Okay.
Another not win.
Yes.
They were 0-8-1.
What was that again?
0-8-1 or 1-8-1 in that decade.
Yeah.
And that they even lost. The year they went to the Rose Bowl, they lost. They were 9-1-1 that year, I believe.
Okay.
And that was
that was a 1 loss. Yep.
Yep. But by then everything was already clinched.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that game because ASU got the ball at like the 2 yard line to start and drove the ball all the way down the field. And Channing Williams, who never fumbled, that team did not fumble. Um, he fumbles at the U of A 1 yard line,
At the you them your oh god, that's crazy.
and it just was another crazy game in a series of crazy games.
That streak, man. That fracking streak
For
of
whatever
9
the heck,
years.
that the right year? Well, no, because that game was in Tucson. Whatever the heck the '89 game was, they lost,
Mhm.
and it was
That
an
was your
afternoon
last game, right?
last one. Rob and I went out that night, and
Commiserating, obviously.
yeah, and
That's
we
the
went to
worst feeling though, man. Gosh dang,
we
losing
went
a
to the
game.
gas,
Ugh.
and I lost track of how many pitchers I drank that night.
Okay.
That's pitchers that I had on my own. I wasn't sharing them with Rob.
Yeah,
Rob had his own.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But you could
Yeah, I
buy
lost.
those pitchers and it wouldn't
Right,
cost
they were
you.
right.
They were nothing.
I had at least 12.
Okay.
At one point, I was playing Papa Shot, and
Oh
somebody
god.
knocked my popcorn into my pitcher. I
Yeah.
just scooped my hand into my pitcher of beer and ate the popcorn that fell into the beer.
Exactly. It doesn't matter after a while.
It didn't matter. I didn't do this. And later that night, we were literally standing shoulder to shoulder to go home that night because we couldn't stand up straight.
So you had to lean on each other.
We leaned on each other to go home. And then
You
one
couldn't
of
call
Rob's
an
roommates,
Uber.
no, there were no Ubers.
It was none of that back then.
One of Rob's friends was driving a VW Bug convertible.